hello everyone, and welcome to the GLP podcast. I'm your host William, and today I have Ryan.
Hello.
We're not doing a 3-minute restart right now, no siree. There was a technical glitch with my microphone for being on and then turning off, so we have to restart everything. Luckily, it was only 3 minutes in and not an hour and a half in, so no big deal. But today we are talking about all the playoff series that happened over this week, and we have a bunch of regular season, the LCK still. Only one more week of that before all regions are in the playoffs. We have the regular season in the VCS that we got to talk about that wrapped up this week, but outside of that, it's all playoffs. So let's start right away with NA, and let's start with the spicy ones of TSM versus Golden Guardians, which was a 3-0 series for Golden Guardians, which we did not expect whatsoever.
Yeah. You thought it was going to be a tight series, but it was going to go down to 5 games. But TSM pulling out the win. I thought based on what we saw coming out of the regular season that Golden Guardians would probably keep the games individually close, maybe take a game, but TSM would just be favored overall.
Yep.
But turns out it was a massive case of adaptation difference this
Yep.
game
Yep.
between TSM not adapting well and GG really adapting well between the weeks.
And I'm getting flamed personally and I guess you too, because you picked TSM as well. Raptor and Damon all both pick Golden Guardians, and they get the gloat about it because Damon's been calling it for like 5 weeks now. He said Golden Guardians are going to beat TSM in the playoffs. He was absolutely correct there.
And I'll say right now, I mean, as a Cloud9 fan, I'm not going to say that I'm against the Golden Guardians winning, and as someone who has actually been on board with Golden Guardians for a while now,
Mhm.
pretty much the entire split, but it just feels like so many times where this team would either be inconsistent or they would just kind of let me down after I started believing in them. And this past week in week 9 was really similar in that regard. I thought that they would actually be able to potentially just 2-0 their final week, finally have a winning record. Turns out they didn't. They just lost twice, including a massive throw against Evil Geniuses. And yet they come right around and they just swing it all the way back.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue. If they wouldn't have gone 0-2 in that final week, I think I probably would have picked them against TSM. Like that was the big issue. I was like, oh man, I think they're faltering at the wrong time. And no, it was a false flag. They are all good.
The other thing that's major about this too is that they actually mentioned this on the broadcast. This was the first best of 5 series that Doublelift has lost in North America since 2016.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been about 4. It's been about 4 years since Doublelift has lost the best of series.
Yeah, 2016 feels like a very long time ago. I was in college, or I guess I was. It depends on when in 2016. Halfway through, yes. Halfway through, no. But yeah, it's been a long time, and it was kind of shocking. So let's go into a match history, which we've already totally didn't start talking about a little bit before the mic mute situation. But let's talk again about how I liked the Shen pick a lot. I love Shen, as you guys know. I thought Broken Blade was playing it phenomenally well for the first. How long was this game again? For 32-minute game. He played it phenomenally well for the first 27 minutes. And then the last like 2 team fights in the bottom 5 were just, oh, they were not good. However, the Mordekaiser pick, like we mentioned before, popped off way harder than we've seen Mordekaiser pop off in a long time. Like, it was very impressive to see. That was like kind of almost right at release Mordekaiser, where he was just getting pick banned all the time. We also saw Ziggs be picked up, which we were very excited about. We called that in the LJL portion of the podcast last week about when we were talking about Zeros and DFM. But that was really nice to see that a team is finally picking Ziggs to after his buffs, because I think him, Vel'Koz, and Xerath are very underrated in a meta that's all about poke and like dragon control, like wave control and dragon control early. I feel like if those are all 3 very long range mages, similar to Zoe in that sense as well, that are not played as much as they should be.
Yeah, I think the issue with those picks though is very much a safety thing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ziggs, for the most part, at least has the ability to not just control waves. He also has global presence with his ultimate. He has tower and structured threat with his passive and his satchel charge. He has safety with the satchel charge.
And well, Ryan just
Okay.
There you go. Welcome back.
Oh, hello.
You disconnected for like 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Oh, well, that's odd. Okay. Well, hopefully I didn't miss too much. But
No.
basically, I was just saying that Ziggs, in comparison to like those other picks like Zareth and like the Vel'Koz picks, while they're much more controlling, they do have a lot of range and wave control, wave management. They just don't have as much safety
That is true.
compared to those sort of picks. There's a lot of utility that Ziggs offers now. And I think that while the buffs that he received on 10.16 may not have been super massive, they were still solid. They're still straight buffs to him. And in a way, it kind of just opens up the pick to people who may not have even like noticed him at 1st.
Mhm.
Not necessarily like placebo buffs, just to get people to start trying to pick him. So I think that is possible.
I
One thing
do-
I will mention about the
Okay.
Oh yeah, one thing I'll say about the Mordekaiser pick as well is that fun fact, after this weekend, Mordekaiser is now undefeated in North American playoffs.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
looking good. And I will also want to mention about Mordekaiser is what Raptor has been talking about in the chat for a little bit here before we go too far past it. TSM
Yeah.
doesn't like to buy QSS very much, apparently. like, Spica bought it, which was good. You always need your jungler always needs a QSS against
versus a
Mordekaiser.
Mordekaiser.
Yeah, because of the he'll ult you away and then it's a free smite for the enemy. Doublet was apparently working on it at the 32-minute mark on his last item apparently, or I guess he had Dorn Shield, so second last item. Bjergsen doesn't have one. Shen doesn't have one. Treats doesn't have. Treats, I think, can get away with not having one. If he's not getting ulted all the time. He's got Mikhails. But does Mikhails get you out? I'm assuming it does. Yeah.
I want to say it does, but I'm not
It
sure.
wouldn't get an ally out.
Yeah, because I
though.
don't think it. Yeah, because I don't think it does. I think QSS and Mercurial have a different effect that lets you get out of suppression, as opposed to Mikhail's, which is more like,
you're right.
just like a
Mikhails
second
does not
cleanse.
There's no suppression here.
Because it's more like cleanse, and cleanse doesn't get you out of suppression or death realm effects.
It does not. Okay. Yep. You guys are correct. Yeah. So interesting. I forgot that the death realm is technically a suppression. That's just what it's coded as. But yeah. So I also love the Ziggs. Like we were talking about this live during the game. Ziggs into Caitlyn is so good because it makes Caitlyn so uncomfortable. And she cannot position at all. Now, granted, most of that was also Doublet having the worst series I've ever seen him play, personally. But at the same time, Ziggs makes it so he just chucks his ult at you. Like he just literally chucks his ult right at you, and you lose half your HP. So now you have to retreat and try and get to the back line still somehow, but you can't. And it's fantastic because Ziggs is always throwing his bombs all the way in the back line. You have Morgana as well, like you said, Morgana with the long range Qs, Ashe ult, like so many things here. And then again, this is also Doublelift played terrible. There were times where Mordekaiser would teleport in, and he just wouldn't put a trap under it. And it's like, this is a that's a mistake at gold level. Like this is playoffs in a professional league, and you're not putting traps under teleports. Is unacceptable. Like there were so many
not just failing to put a trap under a teleport that's been channeling directly in front of you, but like then he would use his net to go forward to try to get a last hit kill on a Ziggs who was already literally dead and burning down to ignite. Then he's forced to flash away from the Mordekaiser, who just runs him down anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and especially and as well as what we mentioned earlier, and what Raptor's saying here is Caitlyn range. The big advantage of Caitlyn is she hits hard and she hits from farther away than pretty much any other champion can get to you. Like you always hit first, essentially. But now with Ziggs ult, Zig just plops down. Caitlyn is a immobile ADC, does have her net to get away, but I don't think the net's far enough to get away from the bomb. The radius of that, if it is, like it's close.
As long as you play, if you place it properly,
if you're in the middle,
unless you literally like, nets backwards and flashes, she probably doesn't get away from it.
Yes, exactly. So you're in at late game with Ziggs, especially this game. He didn't have to get to late game. I actually like maybe a Leandry's on that burn is to just burn as well that HP. But man, all good gameplay by Golden Guardians in that game.
And I will say the other thing we have to touch on this as well is just just stark draft difference
Oh yeah.
between Golden Guardians and TSM. Because you're looking at these team comps, and I see this top side, even if you look at, Lee Sin, Azir, and Shen from TSM, and just the idea of like having those two as like dive buddies in a submarine comp for the Shen to get to the back line, and then Azir and Caitlyn could just kind of just DPS people down from the other end of the fight. Like that's actually a decent idea. The problem is that Golden Guardians just drafted perfectly well, so that even if TSM came in with this comp, anything that they do is just immediately countered.
Yep, Mordekaiser would ult you out.
Caitlyn can't exist in this fight because Ziggs could just throw R on top of her, and then the Mordekaiser could just run directly and just pick his target and just cut them out of the fight completely. If Shen doesn't buy like a QSS or anything, he can. If he's in a side lane with the Shen, he could just ult the Shen and just keep him from ever joining a fight. And then it just comes down to a 4v4.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it literally was like just really intelligent read on the meta when it comes to bot draft, because Golden Guardians actually invest in an early Morgana pick when TSM tries to first pick the Caitlyn.
Yes, in the
Denies the pick,
Morgana,
and it's something that we even
very good.
Yeah, and it's something we've discussed before about where people could say like, oh well, if you pick Caitlyn, you could always pick like a different type of enchanter, like a Lulu, if the enemy team denies Morgana.
Mm-hmm.
But then we've seen like Golden Guardian says, okay, let's see if that works. They take a Morgana, then they take an Ashe, and Ashe is usually a pick that you would think normally loses to the Caitlyn just based on range. But then combining it with
Ashe has technically always been a counter to Caitlyn, but with the recent nerfs, like I don't think she's a big counter anymore at all. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. Well, is like combine that with like just Caitlyn generally having a decent AD.
Yeah.
Superior AD, and then her range actually outranges her for everything except for her volley.
Yep.
So in terms of just pure like 80 DPS down, if you talk about like enchanter versus, especially if Ashe goes with something more like a Tahm Kench or more defensive style support, Caitlyn with a more aggressive support or like a Morgana to protect her can actually just outtrade that Ashe in lane. Yeah. But the issue here is that when you put it's similar to like the Caitlyn Morgana pick, and then an enemy team will pick something like a Karma Ashe. Just long range superior poke that can actually burn through Black Shield in the lane phase.
Yeah. So what did TSM do? They picked Thresh.
So TSM picks Thresh.
Yeah.
This is probably the worst thing you could probably ever have picked into that comp as an answer.
Nautilus would have been worse.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what. It literally doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what ADC you pick for Golden Guardians, and it's like, and since Ashe was up, it's pretty easy just to pick her. It's not a big issue. But picking the Thresh for Caitlyn Thresh is actually not bad as a lane, but picking it into a Morgana that you literally just saw.
Yeah, it wasn't like they got the counter pick on. They got the counter picked when then they picked Thresh. No, they picked Thresh willingly into Morgana.
You would have been better off picking a Braum.
Yeah.
And Braum is arguably even worse into Morgana, but it's like, but as the thing, you're picking a Thresh.
Yeah.
You're not really going to get anything done as a Thresh into this team comp.
It's terrible. But yeah, that game one, that was pretty much, it looked like it was TSM favored for a while. As you can see, this graph is inaccurate because it ends at the 22-minute mark, and the game went 33 minutes. So it's gonna refresh. Nope, that's just how it goes. But it looks like TSM was winning. TSM was winning by quite a bit, about 4K gold lead. But after the next 10 minutes, which are not shown on this graph, Golden Guardians came back, and that was mostly due to great Mordekaiser play, great Zig ults onto Caitlyn, terrible team play by Doublelift, plus terrible team fighting by Broken Blade after Broken Blade had been really doing well that game. So I can't put it all on him because he was one of the main reasons why they were up 4K to begin with. But man, he had some two crucial bad team fighting plays with like missed taunts and stuff, or just
I will say, yeah. I will say the other thing about the game plan for Golden Guardians coming into this game was the bans that they came in with. Hard focusing the mid lane.
Yeah, and
doing their best to basically doing everything they can to keep Bjergsen off of a champion with agency as much as they possibly can.
Yep, and that will be a like relevant thing when we go to game 2 here, where you notice it's very similar scenario. I love the Shen ban, by the way, by Golden Guardians. The adaptation to ban Shen I thought was really good, because if like Broken Blade was pretty much putting the team on his back for the most part in game number 1, and Bjergsen was okay as well, but not too great. But Spica as well. Sorry, it's mostly Broken Blade and Spica, to be honest. Game number 1, it was all of them. Closer was having a terrible game, and this is a very similar. If you look at the team comps, almost a salty run back for the most part. TSM finally realizes maybe Thresh into Morgana, not that great. They pick Bard, which is much better than Thresh. It's definitely, it's viable. I don't think it's terrible by any means. It's terrible when you miss all of your ults though, which Treats missed quite a few, and he played the Bard, and he was not good on Bard whatsoever. And we had an issue with Double It again, having another terrible game and just getting simply outclassed by FBI and Huhi. Let's talk about FBI and Huhi. Just we said it at the beginning or last week's podcast. We needed to see, this was the big testament game for FBI in particular and Huhi as well. But like that, people have been saying, like, we even mentioned that he's the third best ADC right now, or like top 3, top 4 at most. But we've all said that he's been playing better in Double at this split. He needed to prove it in the playoffs, and he absolutely did. And he curb stopped Double in this, and that was fantastic to see. They gave over the Ziggs to Demonte again. The Ziggs didn't get a single kill, by the way. In 2 games on Ziggs, got 0 kills, but it worked. It worked so well at just disrupting Double It, as we said before. This time, Broken Blade and Senta Shen did take the Ornn. It wasn't as effective because Ornn has been receiving a lot of nerfs lately. Like a lot. Not lately, but like over the last month or two.
Yeah. The most recent one, their most recent one was his nerf to his armor.
Yes.
So there are a lot more of the 80 style matchups actually just match up into Ornn a lot better.
Yep. And then,
which means picks like Gangplank and Shen, who are becoming more and more prevalent, and I feel like should be more and more contested as picks, are just going to be that much better into.
Yeah, and Gangplank right now is absolutely a monster. Unfortunately, Haunter had a terrible game this game. Let's be honest. This was not Haunter's game. He was one of the main... Golden Guardians actually had a big gold lead, as you can see, throughout most of this game. They even had a 5k gold lead at 36 minutes. They took most of the base outside of one tower at that point. Then they threw quite a bit, and it was like, oh, TSM is going to come back and win this game. And then TSM got the Cloud Soul, but while they were doing that, Golden Guardian, I didn't even see it live. Hey, Brian. I didn't even see it live, but Golden Guardians put a nice little control ward right there in that top like left corner of the TSM base. Not only that, they have 3 teleports that were all at the ready at the same time. They had Ziggs, Ashe, and Gangplank, all AD. Well, Ziggs is AP, but against towers he does true damage essentially. So pretty much does true damage, plus his execute at 30. I remember we were arguing, like is it 25%? Is it 33%? Is it 35%? Turns out when you level up the satchel, it increases. So we were all technically right at some point. But late game like this, it would be at the 35%. So I don't even think he actually satcheled it, to be honest. But he
didn't need to.
Yeah, he didn't need to. They burnt it so quickly between all 3 of them.
They didn't even have minions. They literally just ran in and just ran in, raw.
Took it out like while TSM was taking the Cloud Soul, just took the tower, and then instantly killed the Nexus, and all of a sudden it was just instant. It was looking like, okay, TSM had the gold lead in the first game. The pause happened, they blew it. Like they just that can happen. Like you could lose a lot of momentum in a pause. Second game, Golden Guardians was pretty much winning the entire game, as you can see by the graph. But then they threw, and you're like, okay, TSM has Ornn. They have all their Ornn items equipped. They have Bard, who's like infinitely scaling, though having a terrible game, to be fair. You have Double It on Caitlyn, who's also having a terrible game, but it's going to be late game Caitlyn now. You have late game Azir. You just have to literally stand behind Ornn, and you have so much damage. Never happened. Like they finally looked like they might have turned it around at the end there with 4-0 on a little bit of an overstep by Golden Guardians, but Golden Guardians made sure with that teleport that don't even have to worry about it. And Spica had 2 games in a row that he played really well. For as much as Spica gets flamed a lot, and I mean sometimes it's justified, sometimes I don't think it is. Spica played a really damn good series, I thought.
Yep, I agree as well. I will the other thing was like this game was definitely Gold Guardians to lose, and they almost did just straight up lose it. They definitely would just went the whole point like when they went into the base, they legitimately just went in way too deep.
Yeah.
The FBI just like ran directly in to try to just gun everyone down. You not ignoring the fact that he's literally standing on top of 3 Azir soldiers that just auto him to death in
Yep.
like a second.
And Speaker had a fantastic move, I believe, that was with his ult
Yeah.
into the queue. I believe it was like right around here.
Yeah, where he literally just chased them all out, basically just killed almost everyone else just on the chase with Lee Sin.
Mm-hmm. I mean, after that, I was like, wow, TSM, that was 2-0, and that felt like a backbreaker to me. Like, getting backdoored like that after everything has been said and done, like, oof. That was a rough one for sure.
Yep. It actually kind of reminded me a little bit of the Cloud9 Team Liquid game for the end of Spring Split, where it was more so like Team Liquid was in control of that game the whole time. It was in control like the majority of that game. Cloud9 found a few good fights to pull themselves back into it, but then it all ended up coming down to just Sven and Vulcan, Tom Kench ulting into the base and taking it down.
Yes, you didn't have to
while Liquid was going to contest Drake.
Hey, though I say you didn't have to remind me, but if that was the straw that broke the camel's back for us to get tactical, we look a lot better now. So if we needed that to happen and we missed spring playoffs for it, so be it.
Speaking of that and asking the question of whether or not Double Lift was the problem, let's move on to Game 3 of the series, where it turns out that you know what, maybe he was.
Yeah, because now if you're in the camp, which I'm still not in the camp of Ashe is still a counter to Caitlyn. I think that's just flat out wrong. With the Caitlyn buffs plus the Ashe nerfs, I just think Caitlyn really doesn't have a counter at the moment. I think there's some matches like Ashe is survivable. Jhin is survivable into Caitlyn, but I don't think they're counters anymore. They might have been at one point, but I don't think Caitlyn really has a counter. And
that matchup ends up becoming almost entirely based on the full duo matchup.
Yeah.
As opposed to like AD, like I can't just pick an AD carry into Caitlyn and expect it to run well because depending on the support matchup, it doesn't matter.
Yes, and then Golden Guardians also pick Graves, which sometimes I think we don't have a lot of fans of Graves. I personally like Graves better than Nidalee, to be honest, and both of them are clearing, like you both clear really fast. My only issue is that Graves, even though he can't do the long range spear, I feel like he's just better at clearing quicker than Nidalee by a little bit, and just like he's just a machine if he gets ahead. And Nidalee, also good as she gets ahead, but she still has to land a skill shot. And I think if Nidalee doesn't get ahead though, she's a lot less relevant than Graves is from behind, if that makes sense. I think
she has to fit a specific comp.
Yes.
Like it comes down to the point where you have to almost look at, okay, you have carries that actually benefit from stuff like attack speed, because Nidalee with like Athene's and her primordial surge heal that grants attack speed can actually work as her being like a stronger second support.
Yes.
To try to make an AD carry that much stronger.
Which I mean, technically Ashe does work with that. They didn't build the Athenes though. They built Rod of Ages, and that Rod of Ages I believe was really late in this game, if I remember correctly, which is a really bad buy. Yeah. we can talk about Shopkeeper all we want. But
I think that was a little. It was close to almost like it was like an 18-minute Rod of Ages.
Yeah. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to Broken Blade, even though they lost. I absolutely love the almost Liandry's build he's doing on Gangplank is fantastic. It scales with crit and stuff, but that burn on that ult, I mean, it technically does have some AP scaling as well, but the burn that you get from Liandry's on a widespread AoE ult adds so much extra damage. Like, think about it. A Gangplank ult in the late game, in a pro scenario, is almost always going to hit 3 people minimum in a team fight, you know? You add the Liandry's burn to 3 people on top of the damage that already late game Gangplank ult is going to do. It's insane the amount of value you get out of that item. So I'm glad that there's someone doing it.
Yeah, I've been seeing that more and more often. I've seen like Licorice actually goes for that build a lot. Mm-hmm. I've seen it's because it's always been like a toss up between going something like Triforce Essence Reaver into into Leandries is more about the team fight utility ultimate,
Yes.
as opposed. But then there are other people that go like I've seen some still go like Sterix, Triforce, Infinity Edge, just to go like full damage build.
Yes.
Like looking for the big barrel crits.
I just think it's so the ult is so much more reliable than barrel crits. Barrel crits
Yeah.
are good.
Oh yeah,
but
I definitely agree.
I think the ult if always go for what's reliable at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That's why I play very simple champions with point and click and everything.
Yeah.
But
and kind of going off of that as well, FBI kind of brought out the new Ash build in this series as well.
yes,
As opposed to going Blade of the Ruin King into Runance into Infinity Edge or AD essentially.
Mhm.
He actually goes for the Essence Reaver build instead
yes.
for increased cooldown for his ultimates. He even said as much on the his post game interview that he actually specifically went for the Essence Reaver build so that his ultimate would essentially be on a shorter cooldown than Doublelift's cleanse.
Gotcha.
So he could actually
that was
so
for
he
game
could fire
2
two
and
ults.
3. Game 1 and
Yeah,
2. It was
same-
not game 3.
Yeah.
Double did the same thing.
No,
though.
that's what I'm saying. I just kind of teeing off of that because of the Essence Reaver into Leandry's build for the gang.
Yes.
The idea of actually adapting your build during the course of the series.
Gotcha. Yep. Because I think that DeMonte as well had a really good game on Orianna. Only 2-1 and 8, but it just felt like he just had complete control. Granted, he was facing Bjergsen, who was on set, which is a very odd choice. For as much as Bjergsen for the regular season has pretty much carried TSM quite a lot, like putting your carry in a do or die game on something that's like as utility as mid lane set is very odd in my opinion. It's not the best to do that per se.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I mean, it's not entirely
fair.
new to him before.
Yeah.
He was one of the few mids in North America that brought out the Ornn mid
Yeah.
in spring.
To be fair though, Golden Guard, what we mentioned earlier, look at their bans on this draft. They banned Akali, LeBlanc. Aurelia could go mid, but that's also a Broken Blade specialty as well. Broken Blade's Aurelia is really good. Twisted Fate and Zillion. They really focused on Bjergsen in the mid lane.
And that was like literally the tail of their bans for the entire series.
Yep, they were
pretty
always,
much banned the same thing every time.
which was good because honestly, if you looked at the film for that means Golden Guardians did their homework, which honestly is refreshing for an NA coach because, like, I feel like we've been having a lot of struggles with our coaching staff the last split or two. Like it just feels like a mess to me lately.
Yeah.
Just
I believe it's Inero is the coach.
Inero is highly underrated in my opinion. I think the way he's done, like the players he's brought to playoff, especially like think about the Golden Guardians team last split with Haunter, Closer, Golden Glue, FBI, and who are not the same FBI and Hui as they were last split. That team made playoffs. That team was predicted.
Don't forget that was also FBI and Keith at one point.
Yeah, and Keith that one exactly. Like this is a much different team. I mean, there's so much improvement on this that's been gone on this team, and I give a lot of props to him as well. And I think adding DeMonte on the team to add to the aggressiveness of Closer with an aggressive mid laner like that has really helped as well. But outside of that, TSM just got 3-0'd. They just got outplayed so hard. 3-0'd. It wasn't unlucky. Wasn't just like it wasn't an LNG Guardian Angel scenario. They were just simply outmatched in every game. Like this last game especially, they essentially got blown out. It was only a 27-minute game.
Yep. Golden Guardians just had superior prep. They had good drafting, smart drafting, and they played the games out correctly. They just looked better across the board in pretty much every facet of the game. Even the supposed like gap areas that you would expect, like even as good as FBI has been, no one expected like the FBI Hui lane to just dominate the Doublelift Treats lane.
Yep.
No one expected DeMonte to hold his own against Bjergsen.
And even though like Doublelift has had a very bad year, like fifth or sixth ADC in the league in my opinion, this year he had been improving greatly since Treats had been on the team. Like they had been starting to look like a little bit like the old Doublelift, not necessarily at peak form, but it was an improvement week to week the more they played with each other. So having them just get like just a brick wall right in the middle of that progress is kind of surprising.
Yep, and the one play that sums up everything else, talking about builds and smart item buys. Well, let's talk about the the one time that that Double Lift decided to just not buy items at all.
Yeah, oh
That's
yeah.
a new way, the new way to lose to Shopkeeper by not buying.
That's just crucial, unacceptable mistakes. You don't
Yep.
buy and you teleport out, then you have to back and terrible.
Yeah, yep, literally, that's like the most game losing, like the most literally tilt mistake I've ever seen in my life. Literally teleporting onto the minion wave to stop FBI and Huhi from freezing the lane. Teleports back in, has money for BF sword, only buys boots. Teleport completes. Literally, you could watch the player cam. You could see Double Lift even mouth the words, "Oh my god," and he backs up, tries to back. Huhi just walks forward and just hits him with the Tom Kench tongue to stop his back. Double Lift has to now run behind his turret just to back to get his buy off.
So
Meanwhile, FBI and Huhi
Wayne's
just hard push. They just hit, then they just hard push the lane. The FBI was already up about close to 20 CS at that point. Now Double Lift has just lost his teleport, has to come back, loses an entire wave of creeps, and it just leads into a dragon for Golden Guardians. That's giga doomed.
Yeah.
And then like Raptor actually mentions in the chat, like Double Lift thinks going into the end point of the match where he thinks he's on spring level of Felios, runs directly at Hauntzer's Mordekaiser, gets death realmed, and just gets 1v1 crushed and killed.
I thought, wasn't at one point Treats got death realm and like it was 1v3 at one point as well? Like Treats got death realm, instant killed, and then he just goes and kills Double Lift and I think Spica as well on top of that. Oh, that was game one.
It was
game one. Gotcha.
No, yeah. I mean, there was a point where they were fighting around Draken at one point, and Mordekaiser was like 1v3.
Yeah, and he got like a 5-man pole.
Well, then he proto belts and kills Double Lift.
Oh yeah,
he kills Double Lift with the proto belt. But I think this was literally Double Lift. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he was just so mentally boomed this game from how the series was going and how the early lane for him went. But he just looked way out of sorts.
Oh, for sure.
For a guy that we expect so much more as a player, especially in playoffs, when he's like that one player in like the playoff setting in high pressure scenarios that we expect him to pop off and perform
all the time, except at Worlds, but all the time in any
well, that's what I'm saying. Well, regional. Well, yeah, regional. We're not going to get to Worlds. I mean, TSM hasn't been to Worlds in a couple of years now, so
yeah, that's true.
That's not relevant.
Yep. But all right, let's move on to FlyQuest Evil Genius. Like the chat said, we will probably go in detail of FlyQuest Evil Geniuses. TSM Dig and Evil Geniuses 100 Thieves. Probably not as detailed.
Not as much to talk. Yeah, it's weird because at the end of the day, those were like the expected results, and even though Golden Guardians TSM was another 3-0, like those two, they were those games were actually relatively close at some points. There are actually some decent talking points. And considering that was like the first, that's literally our intro to playoffs, and it was TSM getting destroyed by Tanner Time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. all right. FlyQuest versus Evil Geniuses. This series started out so well for FlyQuest. They brought Swain mid. I was stunned about that. I don't like the mini rework type thing they did with Swain. I think that really isolates him to support, like taking away his mana that he gets on the poles. It's like, oof, that's really tough for him on his passive.
I like that they made his shotgun hand actually not stop at champions.
That is true. That is a nice buff. That is nice.
That means you just shoot. Especially it works in bot lane too. If you ever want to run him like AD or support, because then you can just shoot both bot laners.
I am curious because I've always been a Rod of Ages guy. I wonder if Seraphs is the good way to go now because of the reduced mana that you get. Now, if you actually need more mana per se, that might be the new build. I haven't played Swain since the rework of it.
It's possible, but I think you still want to build tanky.
Yeah,
you still need tank items. And until you get Seraphs, you literally have nothing. You're basically just buying mana.
Yeah, because you need to be basically in the front line. But what's really nice for that is you have a Shen on your team. Shen's great for that to come in with when you're ulting as a Swain.
It's almost like Shen is just a really good pick right now.
Yeah, it's almost like a really, really good pick, like S+ tier with Gangplank. Huni brought the Hecarim, which did not do much in this game whatsoever. It does do stuff against 100 Thieves, but not in this game. Golden Glue's Galio.
Either of these games, actually.
Not great. Golden Glue's Galio is pretty rough. At 0-6, he just got outclassed by Power of Evil for the most part. Wild Turtle also popping off with the Caitlyn. I hate the Tahm Kench at least. They banned Morgana, but at least if you're gonna play Ashe against Caitlyn, you can't give up the lane with a Tahm Kench. That is asking for death at that point, especially with the nerfs to her. I just find it unacceptable. All around, not a great. I guess the whole point of Evil Genius's comp is to have Hecarim jump in and have Galio dive in top with him. But then the backline of Ashe Graves doesn't do that much. It's not like a. I don't know. I don't know.
And at the time, Graves is going to want to go in anyway.
Yeah, but then you're going into the front line of Shen and Volibear, and Swain is a very tanky, usually mid laner for compared to most mages. And then you just have Ignar is able to pull Wild Turtle out, and Caitlyn's a million miles away from the fight anyway. Still.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is that the Swain pick actually synergizes perfectly with everything else on FlyQuest's comp.
Yep.
There's pretty much a way for him to access his pull on his passive from everywhere.
Yep, even Caitlyn trap.
Even a Caitlyn trap.
Yep, that's also very reliable. Swain's passive is highly underrated. I think I've always loved Swain passive. When you play a team with a lot of CC, it's very similar in the sense of Yasuo ult, where you're if I get a few extra knockups for free, it makes this champion so much better. And I think that's the same thing with Swain. If you have point and click CC,
ease of execution.
I mean, you only have one point and click here, but Shen taunt is not that hard to hit on another tank. All you have to do is hit on the tank in the front line, and you can pull the tank even farther away from the team. And then you can set up the Caitlyn trap on top of that. You have just so much chain CC.
That's the perfect thing is when you DC. It's you hook someone with Thresh, then you pull them closer,
and then they get flayed.
And you pull him into a trap, and now he's in range to get taunted by Shen, without Shen needing to flash.
Yep. It's very nice.
Yeah, and your chase on this comp is actually insane as well.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was semi-close for a bit. Evil Geniuses actually did have a lead from the 14-minute to the 28-minute, but it just their comp just got so hard outscaled, and I think Galio being 0-6 and only that's a problem. But Shen just outscales Hecarim. I mean, Swain outscales Galio. Caitlyn outscales Ashe. And it showed.
Yeah, it really did. It looked like EG were trying to be a little too hyphy with their picks, and then they kind of just lost. They kind of just lost the plot in draft.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So,
game number 2 was another just flat out blowout. This one was a super blowout.
This was legitimately worse than the first game by far.
By a large margin. You have Mordecai, what we were talking about, Mordekaiser solo goes 8-0. Santorin 0-18. A fantastic score line. 0 kills, 0 deaths, but 18 damn assists.
He's that's the Damonte cosplay in the jungle, man. Just no kills, only supporting.
Yeah, just fantastic. 7-1-11 for Wild Turtle. Evil Geniuses brought out the Zyra Khan. It did not look great. We saw Ignar's Gragas. Ooh, that
the level invade, 1 was so fucking unfortunate.
God. That was awesome. So basically, Bang is right here, watching here. Ignar is right here, not in the bush. He's right here outside the bush. Ignar jumps over here with the Gragas belly slam, unseen because he gets into the bush, walks around, hugs this wall so Bang can't see him here. Ignar's only can see right here. Walks all the way up to here. The rest of his team collapses, comes in through here. Ignar starts running this way because he's if I go over the wall, they're going to flash, and they might flash, but they're going to still kill me. This way, if I walk over the wall here, you can get out into the turrets easier. However, Ignar's just sitting right here, just belly slams him, stuns him. Ignar gets over the wall or Zeyzal gets over the wall for a second and then just instantly dies. It was so clean.
Yeah, it's Ignar literally finding ways to play Rakan when the enemy team is playing Rakan.
Yeah, it was so clean. I loved every bit of it. And then from that point on, I mean, it was a blowout.
Yeah,
the entire game.
It was actual domination. At least EG kept game 1 close. This one was just they were just getting crushed. And this is where all the 3-0 predictions look Yeah, this is kind of turning out what we expected to be.
Yep.
Evil Genius is kind of having these odd little drafts, and FlyQuest just outclassing them
Yep.
and outsmarting them.
Yep. So then when we move on to game 3, FlyQuest was winning this game this game was much closer, significantly, but FlyQuest, I thought at the time, had they were able to possibly win this one, though they did get outdrafted, or outscaled, I should say, not outdrafted. But the Renekton for solo is good, but it's into Hooney's Gnar. I like when you put top tier top laner on Renekton. I think he can really carry. If you put someone like Viper on Renekton, it's probably a bad choice. Dignitas.
Well, I also think that you don't want to first pick the Renekton.
Oh yeah,
I feel like that's just a little too much.
First pick is
unless you're in China, you should not be first picking Renekton.
Renekton is a free pass in China. Like it is a completely different champion in China compared to where it is in Korea, NA. Like,
because the top laners in China actually know what to do with Renekton.
They're just flat out disgustingly good players. That is the most lopsided position, I think, comparing each region. Is top lane to China compared to top lane in other regions right now is very scary. And that's even
unless it's the Shy on one of
first pro top laner for some weird
days.
reason. I don't know why it wasn't Zoom.
I don't know about that.
But yeah, watch out for Zoom in Worlds, or even 369 if he recovers from this little bin on Sunning. They're all good, Anyway, not China. NA. But
we'll get to that later.
There was a big pause. There was a chrono break for the second time in playoff, and then right after that chrono break, it was pretty much all Evil Geniuses. As you can see, this only goes to 24 minutes. It was a 38-minute game. but again,
didn't this also happen in the Fly Evil Geniuses game in spring? In the first series that went to 5 games.
I don't remember.
I vaguely remember there being a long pause in one of the early playoff series in spring.
Either way, that long pause really hurt. It felt like because FlyQuest eventually loses this game. Golden Glue on Orianna was fantastic. It's one of the best performances I've seen from Golden Glue. And then Bang on Senna was clean. I mean, Tom Kench is there. I still hate the Tom Kench pick, but I get it. I understand.
The classic Senna Kench.
Into Syndra and Ashe and Rakan, it's okay. It's fine. You have a lot of dive with Renekton and Volibear. It's just, I don't like it in general. But if this is a comp to pick it against, this is a comp to pick it against.
Yeah. But you still look at this. You still look at these team comps, and you just imagine I would still half the time even just favor FlyQuest.
Agreed. I think that FlyQuest wins so much early that it shouldn't matter at one point. I think Renekton.
Yeah, not even early, but then it's like you look at late game. It's like, okay, sure, you have like the scaling pick with the Senna. You have Orianna, but it's like I don't feel like those two just scale so well that like there's nothing you could do about them.
Yeah, and it's almost like
the other side you have a Gnar. It's like, what is Gnar supposed to do for you in this game?
Yeah, I mean, you on the other side you have a lot of pick potential. Rakan, Ashe, Syndra, like there's so much pick potential to instantly blow someone up. Luckily they had Tom Kench, like I said. I will concede this time. But there's so much pick potential to actually get a pick, and if you get a pick on either Orianna or Senna, there's no damage on this other team comp whatsoever, and you should be able to just completely wipe the floor with them. Didn't work though, because Evil Geniuses did end up winning.
Yeah. Yep, and I think like what it ended up coming down to was not just Golden Glue playing well, but Golden Glue basically had the game-winning play.
Yeah.
Flash, Orianna shockwaving Wild Turtle and just killing him.
Yep.
In the mid lane.
Yep.
Just opened up Evil Geniuses to just take the game over and win.
Yep, I agree. I mean, Wild Turtle did have a bad faltering second half of the series. It's a really good first half, because even in game number 4, if we move to that one, most was pretty bad outside. I mean, we also had Fly up top. The Jace pick, I do not understand.
The return of NA Jace.
NA Jace is back. I mean, does Jace even win against Shen anymore? Early game.
I don't even know, dude.
Shen doesn't lose.
He has the early push on Shen, but I feel like even that's like you can even work around that as a Shen.
Like, I just feel like Shen right now, that 20 shield, it's just like Caitlyn. It doesn't sound bad. Like, if you just think numbers, he just gets an extra 20 HP on the shield. But you gotta remember, that's like every 5 seconds or whatever the passive is. Like, it's like every 5 seconds he gets another 20 HP.
It's so good.
It's
and then
so
his
good.
Spirit's Refuge actually shuts down like one of the main things that Shen has, like
Yeah.
Jace has, where he can supercharge his ranged attacks
Yeah.
to just like gun you down with 3 autos
Yep. And
back to back.
it's the same thing with
He
Caitlyn.
shuts that down completely.
Caitlyn's like, oh, she got buffed by 2 damage. Like, oh, big deal. 2 damage is nothing. Now she's S tier because of it. It's like those little buffs sometimes are very significant, even if they don't look it.
It literally just comes down to how playstyles change. Like you compare that to like Misfortune getting plus 2 AD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's cool and all, but the whole point with Misfortune is that she's not going to be nearly as bad as a lane bully as Caitlyn is.
Yep.
Because Caitlyn has like over 100 range.
Now, if you gave her like an extra 10% damage on a ricochet, then she's probably gonna be number 1, like because that's her number 1 ability. But yeah, like you said, I mean, this game is just flat out domination here. Golden Glue popping off on LeBlanc, and this is Golden Glue. This isn't Jizuke's LeBlanc. This is Golden Glue's LeBlanc.
Yeah,
and I love it because I love LeBlanc with Shen. I just think that if you can pull a squishy assassin,
the delivery system.
Oh, it's not only it's a delivery system. It also keeps LeBlanc from getting instant stun and instant killed, which has happened multiple times to teams. And
they mentioned it on cast as well. Like they actually synergize super well with each other, just in how they bridge each other to different parts of the game.
Mm-hmm.
LeBlanc, they said LeBlanc ganks for the Shen in the early game, and then in the late game, Shen ganks for the LeBlanc with his ultimate in the side lane.
Yeah, it's absolutely true because like you said, Shen technically is weak in early game, but it's not.
No,
it's
Shen's early lane, especially against melee matchups, is actually really good.
Yeah, it's because it's not. We're talking about this 20 shield buff, which is good. He's gotten a few buffs before this, by the way. It's like this 20 shield buff put him over the edge, just like Caitlyn. And
it was mostly like his. I think it was his Q and his passive.
So basically, they've given him extra damage on his auto attacks and extra shielding on his auto attacks from the passive. So barely loses any 1v1s. Like, I really don't think he loses many.
Yeah, and then his utility is just so good now. With the Spirit's Refuge, just being able to just stop all auto attacks, and the ultimate, it's just too good. He's just way too good of a pick right now.
And what you just mentioned, didn't mention Shen's signature pick of his ult. Or his signature move. Or, no, not his ult. Sorry. His taunt.
Yeah. That's the thing. And at the end of the day, he still has his taunt. That's also a dash. He has a Spirit's Refuge that blocks all auto attacks. He has an ultimate that's global and gives his team a shield and lets them teleport there. And he has a passive shield on top of it all to let him trade.
Quite good. Quite good right now. And I expect him to be near pick Bandit Worlds. I think that if you're a team that's not an LPL team, you really need to pick Shen every game against the LPL top laners if they're not picking it first, because Shen gives you the potential to survive the early game and provide more utility to your team on top of that.
Yep. He's just way too. And the other thing is that he fits in any team comp.
Yep.
Any team comp is just made better by having a Shen.
Yep. You can shield any of your carries if you're a squishy team comp. You can you can go into a front line, like you said, for Submarine. If he needs to dash, or even an invisible champion, you just put Shen on them. I mean, it's so.
The dude, he can side lane. He can team fight. He has global presence. He just does so much. He's just great. He's just a great pick right now.
You know who does all that as well? Gangplank. That's why those are the top 2 top laners for me. They have
and Gangplank has range.
Everything. All those check marks that you want in a good top laner.
Utility plus carry plus team fighting. Yep. It's just too good. But the issue I will say is that I feel like Shen offers more utility, less than just scaling power.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I could argue against him, and I also think that Shen is just easier to execute.
That is true. Shen is much easier. That's why you build the Landry's on Gangplank, so it's easier to execute. You don't have to worry about the barrels as much. But again, FlyQuest
anyway
didn't look good. Like you said, they only died 10 times. 5 of them were on solo, and the bot lane had the other 5. So Santorin and Power Evil were fine, but sorry,
bless you.
Again, Golden Glue. Sorry, a little bit of a sneeze attack there. But you had all around just better team. I mean, Evil Geniuses after that break just looked like a completely different team. Like, honestly.
Yep. They looked like they actually like almost like they needed the break actually helped them a lot with their
It almost like a mental.
Like they might have been mentally boomed after game 2, but then like as soon as the break came through, it let them all kind of just like refocus themselves.
Agreed. Oh man, let's talk about the final game and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
Very briefly mention the other two and then we'll make
the first silver scrapes of NA.
Yeah, first silver scrapes. And we had Mordekaiser take it home again. We had the Kog'Maw mid again, which kind of fell out of relevance just a tiny bit, not as high priority as it was maybe a few weeks ago, but Power of Evil made it look pretty good, I thought. We had Sejuani for Svenskeren, which still I'm not a fan. I love Sejuani. Yeah. I really, really love Sejuani. Not at the moment. Against in pro play. Solo queue you can still make it work.
Hey man.
In pro play.
Gilius is carrying. Gilius can carry on Sejuani.
Well, that's because he's God Gilius and he can carry on whatever the hell he wants to carry on right now.
But it's proof that you could play Sejuani as an early game champion and it's not trolling.
Yeah. Well, the rest of the world hasn't caught up to that. Us mere mortals haven't figured that one out yet, because Graves against Sejuani is just gonna farm all over her. Just get so far ahead, and
why would she need to worry about farming when she could farm champions?
True. Did Svenskeren farm champions this game?
No. Well, Svenskeren was also trolling this series, so
that's also true. Oh man, but yeah, FlyQuest did this one. This game was relatively over. It was only 29 minutes. There was a brief moment here where Evil Geniuses had a slight gold lead, the tiniest of gold, 100 gold we're talking here. But on top of that, they have a 100 gold lead, but they gave up Infernal Soul. So, I think Infernal... I mean, I may not know too much about League, and not to toot my own horn here, but I think Infernal Soul is worth a little bit more than 150 gold. I don't know. I don't know about you. Maybe. But yeah. Pretty much, good job by FlyQuest. Another great Mordekaiser game, like we said. All around, just... I mean, the team comp for Evil Geniuses doesn't work great because Sejuani
and Braum have good synergy.
Yes,
that's about it.
That's about it. Like exactly. Does Azir stack it with Sejuani? He doesn't, right?
No.
Yeah, he doesn't.
No.
Otherwise, it'd be super broken.
Yes, Sejuani's passive only stacks with melee. Braum passive stacks with any auto attacks.
Yep.
But Azir's Sand Soldiers don't count as auto attacks for
That's the
stacking.
big issue. That's the big issue.
He has to actually run up there and auto attack to proc Braum passive. If you're running up an auto attack,
Ezreal's an auto attack weaver. He's not an auto attacker. You're supposed to auto attack with Ezreal to be a good Ezreal, but you don't. You weave him into your spells.
Yeah. To be fair, his Q I believe does proc Braum passive.
I don't think it does.
Because it counts as an auto attack. So if he hits it, it stacks it as long as Braum already has a stack on it.
Does it? I don't think so. Wow.
I want to say it does.
It does according to Raptor. I'll trust Raptor too, because Raptor. Wow. I did not realize that. How did I make it the plat
it's the same reason why it procs Triforce passive and stuff, because it counts as an auto attack.
That's fair. That makes sense. I did know that. So, okay. Well, the more you learn, even I learn new things.
Braum Ezreal is not a troll lane.
It's not as
optimal, but it's mostly like a Q poke lane.
Gotcha.
Where Braum hits you with a Q, which sets up a Q from Ezreal, and then if you hit another auto or a Q from Ezreal, then you can stun people.
The one lane I still always love is Lucian Braum. I think you win practically every duel.
Oh yeah, well that's because that lane's busted. You Q and then Lucian just runs forward and autos you twice.
Yep, I love that
lane. Now you're stunned.
I shouldn't say. Well, I don't play it too often because I don't play too much Braum.
Well, it's a classic lane. Lucian Braum and Lucian Thresh are the classic lanes when Lucian was the premier ADC.
Hey, this podcast is gonna get real quick after NA. We're just gonna. They're laughing at it because I did say
it's gonna get quick in NA right now too. Because we're done with the two series that are actually interesting.
Damn it. I have another friend now. Another friend is asking me. She wants to play Among Us. What the hell? These people.
Among Us is
a fantastic game. Both of them are fantastic games. But anyway. All right. Let's talk about talk about TSM 3.0 Dig. Was a blowout the whole time, pretty much.
Yeah, this literally felt, watching Dignitas this game with their bans, it felt like they got like the gist of what Golden Guardians did, like the surface level, but they had no idea of actually how to execute on it properly.
God, and it just like you mentioned, round 1, our first pick Remington for Viper, of all top laners. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, it was just feels bad. It's one of the things. The sad thing is that some of those games for Dignitas were legitimately.
And then
even some of the comps they had were winnable, but you had Dignitas trying to execute on them. Then they tried to get cute with like the Kane jungle, try to make Spica feel better about his Kane game. Showing, don't worry, it's not just you. This pick is just garbage right now.
Yeah. And then you had Evil Geniuses versus 100 Thieves. Evil Geniuses looked a lot better in this series.
Yeah. This looked like game 3 and 4 Evil Geniuses versus FlyQuest, so, and they just carried it through an entire series.
This is a massive ammo, let's just say, for people that are very upset with the 7 and 8 seeds for
Oh
NA.
yeah,
like
I was about to say, it's because you literally had the 7 and 8 seeds go out
not win a game,
the very first game,
not even winning a game,
which to be fair is sad because a lot of people had higher expectations for 100 Thieves, including myself. They did
terrible.
Not show up. They
good.
Were bad.
Some looked good.
Sunday was okay.
He looked good for what he needed to be. The rest of his team was falling apart around him. He was rookie of IG earlier today.
Yeah. Oh, he was trying. I mean, he got the Ocean Soul Steel in game 2.
Okay, yeah, that's one thing I want to talk about. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. 100 Thieves in game 2 lost game 2 with Ocean Soul, Baron, and Elder Buff. They lost a fight. How?
because Ryoma got caught trying to R forward as a Zoe.
Yep.
He got CC'd and died.
Yep. But I mean, how?
because NA, dude.
Even with Ryoma dead, I almost feel like you still win the fight just off Elder and Ocean Soul and Baron.
To be fair, I know, but to be fair though, they were still behind. I'm pretty sure they were still behind.
They weren't behind.
They were still behind like thousands of gold.
They were behind thousands of gold. But Ocean Soul feels like it's a 5k to 6k buff. Like it gives you so much. Elder is like a 10k buff, and Baron's probably like a 3 to 4k buff. Yeah. So it's like a 20k buffs on you. Like ignoring gold bleed, it's like an extra 20k in stats dumped into 100 Thieves, and they still couldn't win the fight.
Yeah, I mean, can you just ask your boy Cody?
I know Cody.
Where was he?
Again, Cody had one of the worst. Speaking of double attack, one of the worst series. Cody had one of the worst splits I've ever seen. Probably like 8th or 9th on the.
It's those two. It's those two again. Freaking double lift and his punching bag. Cody's.
Yeah, not good. And Poom had a very bad series. If I recall, he went 0-23 and 6 or something like that.
It was like 2. I think he was like 2 and 36.
Oh,
like 2-36 and 4. It was insane.
Was not good. I don't remember exactly. Poom gang. But I have more faith in Poom. Ryoma had a terrible series. I think.
Yeah. There's like the meme clip. There's a meme clip going around.
That's
where with Ryoma in bot lane trying to wave clear against super minions, and he literally misses a Sleepy Trouble bubble, and then misses a Q. Back to back.
Wouldn't happen to be this clip, would it?
Oh Jesus! Oh my God!
You
make me relive this.
Right there.
Yes. Oh my God! This clip.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And the funny thing is, I'm pretty sure the social media manager for Cloud9 actually reclipped this and then added the hashtag #LiveEvil. And then Golden Glue like typed as dude, man, don't do this. That's just toxic.
Oh, that's not good. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it's one of those things that gets ignored if you're winning the game. But when you're losing the game, that just looks awful.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
That just looks super troll, man. Like, come on, dude.
it does.
It just looks so silly too because he's like running beside it as though he's like, no, please stop running towards my base.
Yeah, I also agree with Brad there. Poom was me. I've been recently playing a lot of Pantheon support. I'm 4-1 with it, but but Nautilus is my go-to, as you guys know. Nautilus, Pantheon, you don't do good if your team's losing. Your KDA does not look good.
Tom Kench too.
Yeah,
talking back to like Golden Guardian supports back in spring. You do not look good as Tom Kench if your team is inting.
Yeah, you're the one with 7 deaths every game.
Guess who's gonna die for your team inting? It's gonna be you.
Yep. All the time.
Because either you're going to look bad for not saving them, or you're going to look bad for dying.
Though I guess to be fair, Pantheon, it's not essentially saving them. It's Pantheon. You're throwing out.
Pantheon is like
you're throwing out desperate.
I dive into you and kill myself.
Yep. Yeah. That's how I play Pantheon. Honestly, I have like terrible KDA with it, but it works so well. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. Yeah. But oh man, it's literally Pantheon, like you said. Yeah. Look at these.
There was a point in this game where in the game 3 where they actually played Pantheon, where Poom was literally in the middle of diving for the stun as Pantheon, and he just exploded in midair. He actually just died.
Yep.
Like, he died mid animation. It was like this. It was the funniest looking thing I've seen.
Yeah, I have like this is on my Smurf account or whatever, but I've been trying to practice it for my main, and it's just like 11 deaths, 12 deaths, 9 deaths. I never realized how much you die just diving in on Pantheon. It's like,
because Pantheon is very much in a similar vein to Leona, Nautilus. It's very much I'm going in champion.
Yeah.
And the ultimate is the ultimate committal of I am going in.
Dude, I'm telling me and my friend have been doing it. It's awesome with Twitch because she just goes invisible and she'll sneak up and I'm like, okay, don't auto until my ult shows on the map, and then she autos and appears, and then I appear just instantly out of nowhere. 2 people right on top of you. Anyway.
Like the return of Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
I will say, speaking of Tom and Jerry, one other interesting thing is something that I actually kind of mentioned with these the buffs coming in on 10.16. It was the return of the Lucian Yuumi lane for Evil Geniuses.
Yes, and that popped off for sure.
Yep. Zeyzal it was omnipresent. The return of the Huni Hecarim, which I felt like was much more reserved. He did get ahead early, but I feel like he actually played a lot much more with his team, so the pick actually made a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just shout out to Golden Glue as well. Dude was like you say, his lane opponent, but like even outside of lane, like he was actually he looked like a stud. He was actually playing really well in team fights, side laning, everything. And he played 3 different champions.
That is true.
He played the Orianna, the LeBlanc, and the Zoe himself.
All right.
And he looked good on all 3. So NA mids represent.
Yeah. Woo. All right. Let's talk playoffs. Let's get our predictions.
We already were talking about playoffs. To be fair, what are you talking about?
Let's talk about the next games of playoff. The next
round 2.
Round 2 of playoffs. We're 2-2 in both of the major regions of playoffs so far. It's not great. 4-4 is not a great prediction record at all but let's do it. All right. So the very first one is C9.
I'll take a loss in the TSM series if it means Golden Guardians win. If it means we finally get peak Golden Guardians, then I'm all for it.
Agreed. All right, winner of these 2 games goes to Worlds. By the way,
yes,
it's very important to mention. So these are must-watch games.
Yeah. For anyone who's not familiar, these are the 2. These are the first time that 2 teams with buys get to play in the playoffs. The winner of these 2 will end up facing each other in the winners bracket finals. The winner of that will go straight to finals.
Yep.
And the loser of that will go into the 3rd place match, which means whoever the
third place match.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's what I mean. It's essentially the 3rd place match because the winner of the 3rd place match in this format goes straight to the grand finals.
Yes.
So in other words,
the loser gets
these
third.
2 series, the loser gets 3rd. The winner goes to grand finals, which means that the 2 winners, the 2 teams that win in these series, are guaranteed minimum of top 3. So you win this series, you go to Worlds.
Yep. And so the first one is on Thursday. By the way, I understand they want to do Academy or like they don't want Academy to clash with LEC and stuff like that. But 4 p.m. is the worst time. I'm at work still when these series
Yeah.
go on. I'm like, come
I
on.
mean, I'm literally just I'm like I'm only just like I'm only like an hour into my work
Yeah.
when these games are starting.
It's very, very frustrating. Oh my god. God damn it. Oh, there's 7.
It is hilarious though when I'm getting off work and the Academy games are just now coming on.
Alrighty. So, C9 versus FlyQuest. C9 has dominated FlyQuest over the last whole year, if not longer.
Yeah. I mean, it's been pretty consistent that for pretty much FlyQuest's existence is being like they came into the league as the Cloud9 Challenger team that had high balls elimination.
Damon has said
So,
C9 is 7-0 against Fly this year. So my question is, does Fly, after a shaky series against Evil Geniuses, which we all thought was going to be a 3-0, it was looking 3-0 till the pause, and then it was like a 3-2 after that. But is that FlyQuest from the first 2 games going to show up? And even if they do, is it enough to beat C9? Answer. Yes or no?
I don't think it's going to be enough to beat C9.
Nope.
Because it's one of those things where C9, even in the middle of their slump, they still managed to pull it together and they smashed FlyQuest.
Yep, they did.
They were the one playoff team that Cloud9. I mean, besides Dignitas that technically made playoffs, but they were the one playoff team in the back half of the split that Cloud9 did actually beat. So I think that the series is possible that that actually goes to 4 or 5 games. Though.
Ooh,
it really just depends. It really just depends on what Cloud9 shows up.
Gotcha. I think even if Cloud9's struggling, the matchup for them and the style is absolutely Cloud9 favored. Granted, Suning did beat V5 in a very similar style analogy, but I just think Cloud9 just is superior to FlyQuest in a sense, and I think they will 3-0 them.
Yep.
I think they just
like I said, if peak, we're talking about peak C9 versus peak game 2 versus Evil Geniuses FlyQuest, I take peak C9 as a 3-0. Like even FlyQuest playing like their absolute best in that series, still loses to peak C9. Problem is we haven't really seen peak C9 in a while, and we don't know if we're going to see peak C9 after like essentially 2 weeks since the end of the regular season.
So what's your prediction?
I think I'll say 3-0 C9.
Ooh, you're also going to 3-0. Nice.
Yeah. I'll say 3-0 C9. Like I want to say 3-1, but I feel like if C9 is going to win the series, they just win 3. I feel like they just win.
Gotcha. That makes sense because if they're looking like the recent C9, all of a sudden this series is in big trouble.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like if it's like recent C9 shows up for like the first 2 games, but then old C9 comes back, then they could probably just reverse sweep it. But that's not exactly a hole you want to put yourself in.
Yeah, that's not where you're predicting if you're predicting C9 to win.
Yeah. The other thing is too that C9. I mean, I believe they've had this whole week to kind of refocus and practice and prepare, not just like for this meta, but also for FlyQuest in particular. Now that they know that that's who they're facing. But the other thing is too is that for a while now, and it was kind of the rounds that were kind of going about in the league scene was that FlyQuest specifically has not been scrimming C9 for a few weeks.
Yeah, that is true.
And apparently they did so specifically for this reason, to go in because they figured that they would be playing them in playoffs and wanted to have certain picks and strategies up their sleeve.
That is fair, and maybe that's an advantage. We're gonna see if that move to not scrim one of the best teams will play out in the long run of them not knowing anything that you're doing. Possibly. So they might be able to get an upper hand with a sneaky pick here or two. But I don't know. It'll be fun to see. I don't think so in general. I think the FlyQuest is just hard outmatched to C9. But if they pull it off, they're at Worlds.
This is the narrative as well. It's FlyQuest arguably playing some of their best league, actually having a consistent roster now, not having won a game against C9 the entire year. do they win a game or do they actually go into double-digit losses versus Cena?
I guess it might be a 10 loss season for them against Cena. That's rough.
Yeah.
All right. The next series though is sort of similar, not as much dominance, but Team Liquid versus Golden Guardians. I don't believe Golden Guardians last time they beat Team Liquid was with Keith as their support. So it's not the same.
He'll double lift out of the league.
Yeah, and we had. I mean, this one is a little bit different in the sense that if it was TSM, I would say it's the same because Team Liquid has had TSM's number since Spring Split Finals last year, and they haven't lost a game since then, towards them since the reverse sweep. But I do like Team Liquid picking Golden Guardians over FlyQuest, even though FlyQuest struggled 3-2. I think FlyQuest actually matches up pretty equally with Team Liquid on the top lane. I think Solo is better than Impact, even though Impact got third. I don't think he should have. I think All Pro should have definitely gone Solo. I thought he was the biggest one robbed. But I think Power of Evil and Jensen are both very good, so you lose that advantage with Jensen. And then you also just have the bot lane of Wild Turtle and Ignar, but your bot lane is better with Tactical and Core JJ, but Ignar also roams along with Core JJ. So they're both roamers, so that might nullify some stuff as well. On top of having
their styles are very similar to each other.
And Santorin it being superior to Broxah. I think you have Santorin and Solo having the edge over their opponents, and then Jensen just having a slight edge over PoE. Like the only big advantage Team Liquid even has is in the bot lane, but like is that enough to win a series?
Yeah. And even then, it's never going to be like, oh, Tactical and Core JJ are just going to be 2v2 shitting on Turtle and Ignar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's not how those bot laners actually do anything.
Yeah, they both.
At which point you're basically coin flipping and saying like, well, if supporters are both going to get roams off and junglers are going to both be active, well, guess whose jungler hasn't actually really been active in a lot of these games?
Yeah, Team Liquid. Though he has improved a lot at the end of the year, still not at the level.
Except for that
one
Volibear game where he died, freaking just ended his whole team.
That's true. That was against FlyQuest, or who was I forgot who that was against, but yeah, I agree.
I don't remember who it was. I think it was actually versus Immortals. I can't remember.
Oh yes. I think you're right about Immortals. Yeah, it was because that was the game with Jensen on Akali. But for the most part, that's a little too hard. Then if you compare it to Golden Guardians, I think that even though Damonte is aggressive, I don't think that he's as good as Power of Evil in the mid lane for stability. I think Jensen can really shut Damonte down, in my opinion. You have Haunter in the top lane, which is a lot less of a threat than Solo, in my opinion, though you got to watch out for that Mordekaiser that Haunter's pulling off. So I think Impact can really survive.
I mean, you talk about Solo and Haunter bringing out the Mordekaiser.
True. And Impact has a decent Mordekaiser as well.
And Impact Mordekaiser.
Yeah, so Mordekaiser is probably going to be a contested pick. But,
which is hilarious because apparently before these playoffs, Mordekaiser was never picked in NA playoffs.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that.
This was the first time he was picked this weekend, and he's undefeated.
Yeah, and I think that Haunter, like, Impact can survive enough against Haunter, especially if you just pick him Shen, he'll totally be fine in that lane. Even though FBI and Hui have been amazing this split, I think Tactical and Core JJ are slightly better still. And I think that really nullifies a lot of Golden Guardians' advantages. The only advantage they really bring is the jungle with Closer over Broxah, pretty much. And that's all they have, where FlyQuest has, like, possible top, even mid. They do have jungles on top of that. Like, so they have top and jungle instead of just top, or instead of just jungle.
Yeah. Which is fair. And I think the other thing I will mention, though, is that if you're talking about pure matchup, you would think that Golden Guardians is just a better matchup for Team Liquid as well, just based on how Golden Guardians plays the game.
Yes,
they are more aggressive, and that could potentially put Team Liquid in a bad state early on in the game. But I feel like they're also just really good at playing more defensively against teams that are aggressive. And Golden Guardians have actually struggled a little bit in closing games and in their mid game, and that's just where Team Liquid loves to play. They love to play in the mid game. They love to play the late game, and just outsmart and out macro certain teams.
Agreed. And
that was Golden Guardians. That's been Golden Guardians' struggle point for pretty much the entire split. We even saw it a little bit in the TSM series where they fumbled a bit of execution here and there. They had to kind of just out micro their way in certain team fights and skirmishes.
Hmm.
and pick off certain mistakes from TSM to actually get a win.
And then, with that being said, I do think Team Liquid will 3-1 Golden Guardians. I won't think it'll be a 3-0. I think Closer gets one game that he just absolutely stomps Broxa and just gets the team ahead through that. But outside of that, I think that Team Liquid should be able to win this series, and we will have C9 and Team Liquid in Worlds. And as an NA fan, I'll be able to breathe a sigh of relief, as I think those are our two best teams, and I'm already comfortable with those two being in Worlds. They don't have to do anything else for me.
I will say, I also have Team Liquid taking this series, but I will give it a 3-2.
Ooh, any reason why 3-2?
I think that I just feel like those teams are much more evenly matched. I feel like Golden Guardians, they showed just how well they can prep for a certain team, and if they're continuing just to work on their mid game, they can actually be dangerous. Because I mean, there are times where Golden Guardians has legitimately beaten a team like FlyQuest, for example, that plays a very similar style to Team Liquid, where we just assumed that they would just lose that game because they might get off to an early lead and then fail to close. But Golden Guardians actually did manage to win at least one of those games, and the other one kind of went the other way. So I feel like it is possible for Golden Guardians to be able to take this game, especially if they're playing on peak form, if they have more picks up their sleeve, if they're able to prep well for Team Liquid. I feel like, and plus you're talking about Closer having Closer has a better series than he did against Spica, and actually having a good series, I should say. Like that means that all of a sudden that jungle gap that we expected for the TSM series is now back in full force versus Team Liquid.
Gotcha.
So,
Also, my concern for Golden Guardians is that Team Liquid, if they are what I think, I don't know. Obviously, I don't have any inside information. They were never picking FlyQuest. FlyQuest was never even an option for them. It was always going to be between TSM and Golden Guardians. So I think that this full week has been practice against either TSM or Golden Guardians. So they're going to have an additional week of practice on top of it. So
it's possible that they were always going to pick Golden Guardians if they won, because I feel like Impact just loves playing against FBI because it lets him say FBI open up. He's the one he loves. Apparently, he just really loves that catchphrase.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. But
Impact's
I will say the one thing I would love about this is that I feel like if Golden Guardians shows up on peak form, I feel like they could potentially just 3-0 TL.
Gotcha. Ooh, 3-0.
Because I think if Golden Guardians comes out and they're just riding momentum super high, and they come in motivated with a game plan, their stylistic matchup, they can actually match up potentially perfectly versus Team Liquid. Like right now, from what we've seen, it's rough for them because their mid game is so iffy, and that's what Team Liquid likes. But Team Liquid, like, one of their main issues is just how passive they could be in the early game and how defensive they could be.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if Golden Guardians are able to bring the aggression hard, fast, and early, and continue to maintain that snowball, that's like the best way to beat Team Liquid.
That is fair.
Problem is that they can never keep they've had issues keeping the snowball together and riding it all the way to a game win. But if they can manage that, I think it's potential that they just ride momentum in the series straight to a 3-0. And then you're talking about a potential peak C9 versus peak Golden Guardians winners bracket finals.
Oof. I'm actually, I wouldn't be super depressed because I'm just knowing for a fact that Golden Guardians would be going to Worlds. I'd be very excited about that as well. I'd be still worried for Team Liquid. Then I'd be sweating bullets because then they got to beat TSM. I believe they'd go to play. Yeah, let's talk about that then. Like, so then we have Golden Guardians going back to TSM in the repeat matchup in this hypothetical.
Yep.
And let's just say straight up.
And funnily enough, by the way, it would also be FlyQuest versus Evil Geniuses in a rematch. There would be 2 rematches in the loser bracket.
Are we assuming Team Liquid, or do you have Team Liquid or C9 if they lose round 1? Do either of them lose to Evil Geniuses / TSM?
No.
Okay, agreed. So I think
whoever loses versus C9 versus FlyQuest definitely beat EG. I think the way EG's playing, they'll actually make that series might actually make that series close.
Gotcha.
And it depends on how FlyQuest look versus C9. If they go down to fight EG EG might actually just beat them the second time around.
All right, so yeah, let's talk. We can go over that one real quick then. FlyQuest versus Evil Geniuses. Who would you have then? Who do you have in that?
I
scenario?
think if they lose to C9, like I said, it's going to be hard to tell because how much of it is just C9, the C9 buff versus FlyQuest, and how much of it is just like C9 just being better. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or FlyQuest not being as good. I feel like though that EG actually cleaned up a lot in terms of their draft, in terms of their draft strategy as well. They kept things a lot more simple and less kind of frayed here and there. So it honestly, I would actually probably take Evil Geniuses.
That's what I like to hear.
I think we actually get a full reverse from Spring, where FlyQuest took Evil Geniuses to Game 5 but lost in the first round. FlyQuest then run the losers bracket, rematch against Evil Geniuses, and then beat them the second time. This time we have Evil Geniuses taking FlyQuest to Game 5 but losing in Game 5, run the loser bracket, then rematching FlyQuest and beating them instead.
Okay, so you have it as a 3-2, 3-1.
I would say 3-1 actually.
Nice.
I think FlyQuest may manage the game, but then Evil Geniuses recover and bounce back.
Alrighty. I actually am going to pick different than you. I would pick FlyQuest over Evil Geniuses just because I think that the FlyQuest we saw at the beginning is more than the FlyQuest we saw at the end of that series against Evil Geniuses. Where I get that, like you said, Evil Geniuses look like they improved a lot. I really do believe in momentum killers, like the pauses if you're on the winning side a lot, and then also it being a benefit to the team that's down because of, like you said earlier, a mental recheck. Like you're able to like refocus, like okay, like let's refocus the game, almost consider the game brand new type scenario, like just restart everything in your head, get rid of that tilt after like a good breather for 10-15 minutes or whatever it was. I think if that doesn't happen, I do think FlyQuest probably wins game 3 and it comes to a 3-0 stomp. But so that being said, I do think FlyQuest still will have the upper hand on Evil Geniuses as long as there's not another corner break. But I think it will be a 3-1 FlyQuest win. I just believe in the top side of that map is so strong with Santorin, Power of Evil, and
I think the one issue with Evil Geniuses is just the way that series started out for them. It just felt so tragic and they felt boomed.
mm-hmm.
But I feel like just with how the series ended up going by the end of that, and then just coming off of a series where they just absolutely crush 100 Thieves, and they do so actually pretty clean across several games. Like there was the Drake control they kind of lost control of in game 2, but even then they were able to pull back control, and they were controlling like 80% of that game. So it's possible that they can just ride that same momentum. And then if FlyQuest is coming out of a series where they potentially get 3-0'd by C9 again, they're coming into a series where they're riding more on a low and feeling a bit more desperate, and EG is riding on a high and looking for revenge. Plus, I like the idea of the loser bracket final coming down to 2 NA mids playing against each other.
Okay, that's fair. But we will have to see because are you giving away your prediction for next one between Golden Guardians and TSM?
Yep. I think Golden Guardians beat TSM again.
Is it another 3-0?
I would say I'd maybe give TSM one game.
Okay.
I say TSM bounce back and they keep the games closer this time. But Golden Guardians just come out, they have a stronger formula and a better grasp on the meta. TSM beating Dignitas the way they did does not give me confidence that they just all of a sudden just turn everything around and beat Golden Guardians.
Okay. And then, like, I agree with you that I think this is going to come down to a much, much closer series, but I think it's going to be a 3-2 by Golden Guardians. My only reasoning is I think Doublelift will play a lot better than, I'm assuming at least, that he will play a lot better than he did last time they faced. I think Bjergsen will probably play similar. Golden Guardians will come in with the same strategy of really betting out Bjergsen. Broken Blade play fine. The issue is I don't think Spica's going to play as good as he did. He performed phenomenally against Golden Guardians, and it still resulted in a 3-0. And I think that closer performed okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think it's a combination of Spica maybe not playing as well, but also closer actually showing it.
Yeah, and so I think the 2 wins come with double, if not just completely ending. But I don't think that will even be enough. I think the difference between closer and Spica was so big in the other way that we did not expect of Spica being better than closer almost all series, and that's going to reverse, and that's going to just be a backbreaker for TSM. Yep. So yeah.
I will say though, in the case that I did give my prediction for Evil Geniuses to actually take the upset versus FlyQuest. Mm-hmm. I will say that if C9 loses, I do still have C9 beat Geniuses.
Yeah, that was the previous.
In either case, I think Team Liquid also beat TSM.
Yep, that's what we mentioned earlier. That's what I was asking. Do either of these winners, do either of these teams lose in the next round? And we're like, no. All right, let's wrap it up for NA. Hour 30 for NA, even though we talked about 2 series. A little bit longer than I expected. But let's move on to EU. Yeah. But I think after here, this is where it speeds up. Because EU, we have nothing to talk about except for the matchups themselves. There were no matchups this week. They had a week break in EU. But we got 3 games this week. We got SK versus SO4, G2 versus Mad, and Rogue versus Fnatic. So let's start out with the loser bracket on Friday. SK versus SO4. Who do you got?
As much as it pains me to say it, I'm afraid Schalke's run in playoffs ends in the first round because I picked Schalke to beat SK.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was like, really? Yeah. I was like, because I debated this. Not necessarily. So you have SO4 winning 3-1, 3-0, 3-2?
I have them winning 3-0.
3-0, that's fair. That's fair. That makes total sense, and that's kind of what I was thinking. However, I actually think that we need to take a step back, and I love the hype. I love the hype. No. Listen.
No, I'm not going to take a step back. Why would I do that?
Well,
we can only go. We only go forward.
Yes, but my only concern is teams that are running on pure momentum and pure just like adrenaline, winning week after week after week like this. A week off tends to hurt those teams a lot more than it hurts teams that are like, say, struggling. And not necessarily that SK was struggling too much at the end of the year. They did lose their final game, but SK, they were 1-2 in the final week, 2-3. Let's see, 3-4. Yeah, they weren't doing great. The last 3 weeks of the season, they were 3-4 to end the split. So they were 5-4 overall in the second half of it. So just pretty much a 500 team. But it's just that what Raptor just mentioned, SK has no firepower compared to them. I think as long as SO4 stays hot, they should be good. However, if I'm going to pick SO4. But it won't surprise me as much as I think it might surprise other people if SO4 gets beat this
3-0.
3-0.
And they get 3-0.
Yeah, gets 3-0.
That's how I feel. That's exactly how I feel like the series is going to go. It's either going to be Schalke just 3-0 SK and they keep riding the hype train all the way to finals, or they just get 3-0'd by SK because all their momentum died after they got out of the regular season. I'm picking Schalke mostly because I want the narrative to happen. That might be honestly, It might be a biased pick for that purpose, but I have a bad feeling that week break is really going to hurt. Are you saying it's in your gut?
Yeah, it's a gut feeling.
We know his gut is unstoppable.
It hasn't been unstoppable. It hasn't been unstoppable this split. It's lost.
Will's gut can kill gods.
Oh man, my gut was unstoppable in spring. I think it was 9-0 in just random predictions that didn't make any sense, but just had a gut feeling about it. It's been like I think 5-2 or so. It's lost a few. there was one where I thought Fnatic would beat Mad Lions, and they should have. To be fair, Fnatic just choked it. But I remember losing
Your
that
gut
one.
was not strong enough to stop Fnatic from inting.
Yes, exactly. But just watch out on this one, okay? It's Schalke fans, and everyone's a Schalke fan right now. To be fair, this one scares me a lot more than I feel like it should.
But hey, man, we gotta get Schalke at Worlds.
I'm giving, like you said,
Canyon wants to play them.
I know. I saw that, but I will give Schalke a 3-0 because, like you said, it's gonna be 3-0 either way, in my opinion. All right. G2 versus Mad. This is a rematch from spring, double rematch. Last time Mad came out and upset G2, like a huge upset in the playoffs, the rookies. Now they come in and it's kind of like they are technically the underdog because they are the 3rd point seed, but they did finish
the undercat.
Yes. They finished 2nd in the summer season. Looked to be the best team in Europe for pretty much 7 weeks of the season, I would say, out of 8. And the last week kind of really... They were faltering a little bit, but then they really faltered in the last week. Do they re-perform from last spring and perform and get a beating on G2 in a best of 5?
I think G2 takes the rubber match in the best of 5 series versus Mad Lions.
Gotcha.
Mad came out, beat them in the first one. G2 came out, got revenge in the second. I think G2 come out and they reestablished themselves as the top dogs over the Mad Lions.
Okay, so you think it's gonna be 3-1, 3-2?
I'd say 3-1.
3-1.
Okay. I'll give Mad one game, just like the one game they got in the regular season.
All right. So this is also the opposite of Schalke. There's no gut here. Don't worry. There's no gut warning here. But I think that this is the opposite of Schalke. And I think this break is very good for Mad Lions. They were really
They needed this. With how bad they were slumping, they needed a break.
They needed that break to mentally reset and everything. And I think that I don't think this is going to be a 3-0. I actually think this is going to be an insanely close series. This is the series to watch this week for EU and possibly all around the world, depending on what the other series are. But I think that this one's going to a 5. I think it's going to be a 5, and I think G2 barely squeaks out alive. I think it will be just come down to G2 having the quote-unquote better players. Like, not that Mad doesn't have bad players at all, but just the more experience, and just Caps isn't going to satchel himself into not hitting the Nexus this time. It's going to be... If Caps pick Ziggs, I might be sweating a little bit, but I think G2 will take it, but I think it's going to be much closer. I think Mad Lions are going to come out and look like form what they have in like week 1 to 7.
Did you see that? By the way, did you see that? I think it was Yankos memed about that on Twitter.
Yeah.
When Damonte got the back door on Ziggs, I'm surprised he didn't try to satchel the Nexus.
Yeah. Oh, I love G2. They're such trolls to each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. I have it as a 3-1. I would not be surprised if it's just a 3.
3-0.
Yep. Okay. I would not be surprised if it's a 3-0.
I would be pretty surprised if it's a 3-0 by G2.
I think G2 are legitimately ramping up at the same time that the Mad Lions are ramping down. And I think that even if you get a break to reset, I don't think that automatically just brings Mad Lions back up to like early summer.
Okay.
Or like that week break automatically puts G2 back into early summer.
No. I don't think it does that.
I think they might plateau a little bit and they stop their fall, or maybe they stop their rise. But I feel like that still puts G2 above Mad Lions.
G2 is in a different scenario of Schalke. They're both on massive winning streaks to end, but it's not like Schalke's running on hype, where G2's running on we're back to where we were expected to be. There wasn't any like hype.
To be fair, man, to be fair, hype is one of the best things to run on.
Oh, it absolutely is. It absolutely helps.
That shit could carry you.
It does.
Forever.
I fully believe in that. That like momentum and everything, I think, is a massive.
Yeah. That's why I'm even saying stuff like back in NA. It's talking about like, imagine if Golden Guardians come out versus Team Liquid and they're still hyped about their 3-0 versus TSM. That can legitimately just let them 3-0 Team Liquid as well.
Okay.
The momentum can actually carry teams deep, depending on how deep it runs in them.
All right. Yeah, I think that I mean, that's why I'm worried about Schalke. I think it might slow down. I'm really worried
No,
there. All right.
yeah,
So that being said, game number 3 this week would be Rogue versus Fnatic. Oh, we don't have to do any like random. Like, okay, if Rogue loses here, we have to pick.
yeah. It's literally only like a bunch of the first round
Nice,
matches.
nice. That's really good. Okay, so Rogue versus Fnatic. This one, in my opinion, I think Fnatic is still they're in the playoffs. Sure, they're the 4th seed. Sure, they are the second. Them and SK are the weakest teams in the playoffs at the moment, in my opinion, by a good margin. Rogue, as we know before, really capitalizes on mistakes. Very similar to Team Liquid, very similar to Suning. Like, just absolutely capitalizes on opponents' mistakes. What have we seen from Fnatic over the entire course of Summer Split? Is mistake after
AP
mistake
Cho'Gath.
after mistake. Yes, that too. Yeah, also known as a mistake. Like, just mistake after mistake after mistake. Miscommunication. Terrible team fight engaging with Hylissang. Terrible, like a Nemesis not going in on fights. Bwipo overextending and getting killed. Self-made ending, but that was only recently. Self-made actually had a good split before that. Reckless has been stable as a rock, as you can be. I have no issues with Reckless this year, but yeah, Hylissang just ending over and over and over again. It's just been. I think Rogue takes this in a 3-0, and it's a very big stomp on the 3-0.
Yep. Honestly, I really hope it's just a 3-0. I want Fnatic out of these playoffs.
I agree.
Like, it took everything in me to just be like, man, because there's something in me that was just like, Fnatic is going to find a way. They're going to find a way to make me upset, and they're going to win this series like 3-2 with like off the back of some BS, and then just run it down at Worlds. But it's like I keep looking, and it's like because I feel like it's a combination of not mad, but a combination of Fnatic making me upset by randomly just pulling out BS and winning games, but also Rogue finding new ways to really upset me and disappoint me as a team. It would not surprise me. It's like, Rogue, we've locked in a first place spot, immediately lose in the first round of playoffs.
Yeah. And what Raptor mentioned and Damon, if Fnatic loses to Rogue, G2 and Mad will seal Worlds. They will be the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd seed, or I guess they could technically be 4th seed, but those 3 teams will be Worlds finalists, or going to Worlds, where it will be a battle between Fnatic and the winner of SKSO4 for that 4th and final seed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, did you say Rogue 3-0 as well, by the way?
I have Rogue 3-0.
Nice. Okay. So
I would be disappointed with anything else.
yeah, I agree. I think that again. So in a hypothetical scenario, because I know the answer is obvious. If SO4 beats SK, you want SO4 at Worlds. We all want SO4 at Worlds.
Yes.
If SK does beat SO4, who as an especially for Raptor 2.
I hate myself. That's what happened.
You're gonna all right.
Yeah, because that's what happens. It's literally if SK beat Schalke, all hope that I have for their 4th seed dies.
Agreed.
Because then I think like Fnatic loses to Rogue, and then Fnatic just beats SK and they sneak their way into Worlds.
I think that it's a scenario. That is the scenario I warned back in week 5, week 6, when Unicorns of Love and just like so many of these other wildcard top teams like Istanbul Wildcats. I think those are threats to teams like Fnatic and SK. I think they're around the same level as those teams. Fnatic when they're broken, obviously, like this. Obviously, if Fnatic gets their shit together, all of a sudden this is a much different team and a much bigger threat. I just don't think they will get it together. But especially teams like SK without Trick now. I mean, not that Trick was playing amazing this year, but it's a shot caller that you lost. It's someone that you synergized with all year, and you have a brand new jungler. It's really hard to set up. So if either of those teams come in, I think depending on the wild card they face, very close. Like, watch out.
Yeah, that is the other thing you have to kind of look out for with this week break. Like we talk about Mad kind of resetting themselves, or Schalke potentially just losing their momentum with a week. Like, who knows what we may see from Fnatic once they have a week to kind of chill and maybe try to reset themselves as well.
But
depending on how
last time we said that they didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. That's what we thought. But like I said, who knows? Like maybe like this is like gut check time, and that's when everyone decides they're going to show up now.
Maybe, yeah.
But the other thing is too is like with the SK Schalke series, is the jungle situation as well. Is do they just run with Trick versus Schalke, and then if they win, do they then switch to Canny? If they believe that they have a chance at Worlds, and they want to get this guy experience, considering they
That's
won't be able to
tough.
have Trick for Worlds either.
I would argue,
Or do they just run with Canny from the start?
I would argue, this is gonna sound weird. That is a very good question for SK. I would argue that you play Trick against SO4 and all the way until you lock a world spot. Then you switch to Canny and you just like you have to get there first, is my opinion.
I gotcha.
You have to get to worlds first so that even becomes a problem. Like it's one of those we'll see when we get there type problems. Like then you just scrim with him all the way through practicing for Worlds. Then you get to at least play against the wildcard teams, much weaker than the other region teams in the major region. Still strong, like I do hype them up like that, but they are significantly. Even Unicorns of Love is significantly weaker than the teams from China, the top teams from Korea, even the NA team, like the top NA teams like Cloud9 and Team Liquid. Like they are not at that level, obviously, but you kind of just hope. Give them a crash course of scrims and hope that crash course of wildcard gives them something type deal.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that.
But you got to get there is what I think. And I think the best way to get there is play with the person you've played with for almost every single game. So
gotcha. I feel like the only other thing I would mention is if you consider Trick a long-term option for this team. Because if you pick up a player like Canny and you think maybe this is a guy you're going to run with in the future, like even if you don't make Worlds, if this is the guy you're going to decide like, hey, maybe we could try this guy out and he could be our jungler going into 2020. And because if that's the case, if that's an option, and you know that you're not going to have Trick at Worlds anyway, I would almost just say, hey, let's see how you do.
Okay, that's fair. I guess we're arguing the same side for different points because I don't think Trick will be the jungler. I think Candy will probably be the starter next year. So my philosophy is what gives him more practice, getting to Worlds and being able to scrim against world level talent all across the world, or just playing 1 to 2 possibly best of 5 series in Europe, if that makes sense. But yeah, we're on the same page with it. And not a team barring Origin. Yeah.
Or he said he'd be shocked. He said he'd be shocked if Trick starts next split.
Yeah. Oh man. All right, I think. Do we have anything else to add to EU? That's what I'm talking about with this quick podcast. By the way.
Yeah. I don't think there's not too much to say. I think we hit a lot of the points that we thought. I mean, there's only 3 matches to discuss. We had no like post-match discussion for the last week.
No.
There's nothing really big in terms of news. I mean, the only thing I guess we could mention for anyone who might be confused with the talk about Trick is for anyone who's not aware is that SK Gaming right now, the reason that they picked up a substitute jungler named Canny was because they received word that there are issues currently with Trick and his potential visa to play with the team in the case that they make Worlds in China. So if SK Gaming do make Worlds, they will be unable to start with Trick as their jungler.
Yep.
So, just one of those if scenarios for anyone who wasn't already privy to that.
Gotcha. All right. And with that being said, though, EU will be pretty exciting to watch this week, I think. I think both of the winners brackets, hopefully the Rogue one's a stomp, but I think the loser bracket, at least in the G2 Mad, is pretty exciting to see, especially just to see if Schalke's miracle continues.
Yeah. I think it's also just refreshing having EU back.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
After a week without, and with a lot of matches in NA and the LPL that kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. Need a little bit of a palate cleanser, like watching Schalke win and Fnatic get stomped in playoffs.
All right. Speaking of why you need the palate cleanser, the LPL started out really good. We had V5 3-1 FPX. They looked much better than I thought. and FPX
FPX
looked much worse.
FPX also
than I
looked
thought.
much worse.
Like outside of Doinby, like the rest of the team, oh my god, that TM was playing terrible. Crisp, they're just all
Man,
terrible.
this FPX were like FPX. Little did we know that FPX were like foreshadowing another team that would come up later.
Yeah,
they were also world champions.
And then LGD pretty much simply outclassed Team WE. Peanut's on fire right now, man. Peanut is back right now.
Freaking like LGD Peanut is disconnected. Rocks Peanut has joined the chat,
and it's amazing.
Dude is popping off. He is jungle diffing everybody right now.
I mean, it was pretty phenomenal. Like just flat out, like it just like.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fair,
and it's not like I didn't expect that and the bot difference from LGD against Team WE, because Team WE's strengths were the rookies in the jungle and on ADC. That was their best positions, and they just got clapped so hard.
Yeah, that top side for LGD is no joke right now.
Oh no,
Longja, GA, and Peanut are like in form right now. Yeah. And it didn't stop with the WE series, but we'll get to that.
No, yeah, exactly. Because then we went straight to the quarterfinals and in the next round and then we had Suning. They 3-1 V5. V5 had one of the worst series I've seen.
And not even just that, the 3-1 was disingenuous.
Yeah.
That series should have been a 3-0.
Should have been 3-0. We gotta say V5 really dropped the ball that series for sure. Just very similar to them against Suning in the best of three of the regular season. But like just flat out, they played terrible. What you call? Who didn't shoot? Blanking. ADC. V5. Sam D subbed out. Was it game 4? Game 3? They got subbed out for Y4.
It was 4.
Yeah,
it was game 4.
Game 4 subbed out for Y4. Our favorite Y4 from last split on V5, Y4 from V5, and just nothing clicked, which is okay in the sense that it happens when you're a team like V5. Very hyper aggressive teams. They always look really strong, but if they lose hard.
Yeah, my issue with V5 in this series in particular was. It felt like draft difference.
It did.
Every time, and not even in the sense that draft was necessarily bad or good, or like on either side. It just felt like nothing that they drafted made sense for what V5's game plan was in that game, or like how they want to play that game. They would opt for offer multiple skirmishes early on champions that just simply are outclassed in early skirmishes. With what Suning had drafted for themselves.
Yeah.
And it just felt like they mind gamed themselves. Or like Suning Jedi mind tricked them into picking worse early skirmish comps and then opting for early skirmishes.
I went to do the match history because I totally blanked. I forgot you cannot do that with China. Trojan horses on those websites. Learned that 2 years ago when I first started doing this. It's the only region where the match history doesn't link back to the Riot match history. Only region in the entire world. Out of all the wild cards, they all go back to Riots, League of Legends. China goes to a Chinese website that has some good stuff on there. A lot of viruses. But Suning. Congrats to Suning though. It hurts as a V5 and as PP God, PP believers.
As the PP leaver.
PP leavers. It hurt, but it was well deserved from Suning. Victory 5 did not deserve to win that series. It wasn't like they played terrible. They drafted terrible. All around bad.
Suning came around. They had the proper game plan. They drafted to that game plan, and they just beat them. It was literally just a continuation of the Suning V5 series, where they lost a game 1 versus V5 because they picked all scaling. And then they pivoted from that style, and then just found ways to attack and out skirmish V5 with their draft picks early, and then they just did the same thing in all 3 games, and they conceivably should have won just 3-0 sweat just completely. If it wasn't for a ridiculous mole spellbook smite Baron steal on Galio. But the V5 as a whole, like you're talking about, like a team that looked really good against FunPlus Phoenix, they looked like shells of themselves.
Agreed.
They played like absolute fucking trash.
Yep.
They just they get like it literally felt, especially like in the game one, that Bolt was like trying to learn how to play Galio in the middle of the game.
It did.
Like he like we saw him just like in mid lane, like he's like he's flanking for like the other side of the team fight. He's directly in front of the Lee Sin. He tries to ult his Galio in front of Lee Sin, who just kicks him and breaks the channel on his ultimate. So then the entire team fight is just lost now because of that.
Yeah, and it's just like
Just
but
poor mistakes, poor game planning, and just poor individual micro play. It's just poor all around. And you expect better from a team that we would want to see at Worlds, that we think has the ceiling to make Worlds.
yep, and be a contender at Worlds. Like I thought that they were aggressive style enough that they could be a contender, and then I was
But
like,
no.
okay, it's okay as long as IG just beats LGD. And if you
Yep.
look at our predictions, we all thought it was going to be a 3-0, and we didn't get mocked for that. That wasn't like, oh wow, you guys think IG is really going to 3-0
Yep.
LGD? IG is just
Yeah.
the better version of LGD on all grounds, or so we thought. And it
Yep.
wasn't.
Like we even saw LGD. They came out. They dominated a team like WE. But again,
we
it's
expected
WE.
that. We expected
You-
that.
Yeah, it's not just expected, but WE still took a game, and
Three-
LGD like stylistically should just be better than WE in terms of matchup. So the fact that WE even managed a game versus them is like, oh well, this should be too big of a deal then for IG.
Yep.
And yet,
And then, I mean, I can't show the match history like I mentioned. All 3 games under 30 minutes. All 3 blowouts.
Yeah,
Every single
it was
one wasn't
absurd.
even remotely
Like
close.
the average game time was like 27 minutes.
Was there
they-
a time where IG was in those games?
No,
like it was
they got annihilated. Like the Shy was on range champions in every game. Like
The
I saw
Shy-
him on Lucian
the
top
Shy
and
getting his
Kale
ass
top.
kicked.
Like he got destroyed. He was
Ning
getting, like
just
the entire
destroyed
top
him.
side was just fell apart. It was literally, it felt like early split. It felt like early split Invictus,
Yep.
where it was the Shy Ning running it down. Like the bot lane is on fire. Rookie is running around trying to duct tape everything. He's just trying to keep the ship from sinking, while also trying to put out fires. Like it was terrible.
Yeah, it was.
This was the IG that was like not even close to our top 10.
Yep. Yeah.
like,
when
it
they
was
completely fell
awful.
out of our top 10. Like, if we're like, oh god,
Like,
this
we-
IG
like-
team's a mess.
Yeah, like this is a team that we literally looked at, and we saw them like, oh, how badly they were crushing like the top esports series, and how good they looked, like how good they and V5 looked against each other when they played, etc. And we were using that as like the judge for how like a lot of their playoff series would go. Little did we know it was actually the Vici Gaming series that they played, where they lost 2-1 to Vici at the end of the split, was actually apparently the form we were going to get for playoffs.
Yeah, it just, and that terrifies me a lot for IG, because like they, like how we always mention, like evil geniuses are just flippy as can be, like super
Coin flop.
uh
Well, they definitely flopped this game, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
and that IG is just that on a much higher level, and it gets very ugly, especially playing against teams that are in the LPL, like LPL level teams right now, which are literally like best in the world type teams. You can't do that. You can't have your worst games like this, or it looks as bad as it did. And
Yep.
I mean, if your whole thing is about skill checking people, and you're failing every single skill check, then that's a big problem. And yes, what Raptor just mentioned is how it's going to be now. With LGD winning, unfortunately, V5 is now eliminated from the gauntlet. The gauntlet has been set. We just have to find which 2 teams will not make the gauntlet, and which 2 teams
Yep.
will automatically qualify.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just to elaborate further on that, the way it works in the LPL is actually somewhat similar to, for anyone who's not familiar with how the LPL seeding works, it's similar to how the old NA seeding works, where you receive championship points based on your finishing point in spring, and those championship points carry over to summer, along with the championship points you earn in summer.
Yep.
Because of their finish, Victory 5 did earn, I believe, it was 20 points,
Yep.
which would have been enough to seed them into essentially the gauntlet. That would have earned them either a third or fourth place seed.
Because LGD
the
would
winner
have got 10 if they lost.
Yep. The winner of the summer, they will get the first seed. They'll be first seed going into Worlds. The team with the highest number of points will get the second seed. And the way the gauntlet works is the remaining 4 teams with the most championship points will play in a pseudo gauntlet. The 2 highest point total teams will play each other for the third seed. Then the winner of that, then the two teams that have the lowest amounts play each other. Loser is out. The winner of that plays the loser of the 2 higher point teams, and the winner of that gets the 4th seed. So it's a bit different, but long story short, Victory 5 had 20 points because they managed to beat FunPlus Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
FunPlus Phoenix does still have points from finishing in the semifinals in spring.
Yep, they finished.
So they do still have points for the gauntlet, but because Suning beat them, and Suning beat Victory 5, Victory 5 also have no points because they did not make playoffs. They did not win a game,
they won one game.
Well, I said they did not win an entire set in the entirety of spring, so they definitely did not make playoffs to get points. But Suning and LGD were the other 2 teams in this playoffs that did not have any points going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
So for V5, losing the series means that Suning has now surpassed them in the points that they've earned. But if LGD lost their series, they would only have 10 points from beating WE, and Victory 5 would actually surpass them in points, as would IG, as would FunPlus, as would Suning, and then Top Esports and JDG both have more points than any of them.
You want to know something
that would have actually
IG?
eliminated LGD from World's contention, and V5 would have made it as the team with the lowest amount of points.
You want to know something funny about IG this year? They haven't won a best of 5 yet. They've won 1 game in playoffs all year. They got 3-1 by Top Esports in spring when they were the number 1 seed. Then they went to the 3rd place match and just got 3-0'd by FunPlus Phoenix, and now they've been 3-0'd by LGD.
And they were out in groups.
And they're out in groups
MSC.
At MSC. Haven't won a single best of 5 all year. That's
don't forget their best of 3 game record was not the best either.
Yeah. This team is very coin. When they're on though, it sounds like we constantly insult them. We have this team as our 2nd best team in the world, or 3rd best team in the world, in last week, not just like at the beginning of the season, last week. And
I mean not just that, but even like a couple of weeks ago, we had them already number one in the world.
Yeah, after they beat Top, they crushed Top, and they have the potential. It's just that it's so inconsistent. They are so inconsistent. They are them and Damwon have essentially replaced each other.
Yeah.
Where Damwon used to be super inconsistent, and IG was still inconsistent, but like a better inconsistent. Where now Damwon looks invincible, but that's also partially the way Korea looks as well.
Yeah.
But
and I will say too, just kind of commenting again on what Raptor is mentioning in playoffs is essentially, let's look at it like this: if the finals comes down to the same 2 teams from spring, if it's Top Esports and JDG both make finals, just like in past before, one team will win, the other team will definitely have more points than anyone else, so they will go as second, which means the last teams for the gauntlet would be FunPlus, who are already there, IG, who were already there because they both lost their playoff series, and then it will be Suning and LGD. And with the current point allocation, I believe it would be Suning and LGD essentially playing against each other. The winner would be the 3rd seed going into Worlds.
Yep.
And the loser would then play the winner of IG versus FunPlus Phoenix. The loser of IG versus FunPlus Phoenix is out of World's contention.
Yes.
And the winner of IG, FunPlus Phoenix, and LGD that team goes as the 4th seed because the LPL has 4 seeds going into Worlds like Europe
So
this year.
we, for
So
sure,
it is
we'll
possible
have
that IG and FunPlus Phoenix, the
both
two most recent reigning defending world champions,
don't
that
make it.
it's possible that neither team makes Worlds.
And it's not that they're terrible teams by any stretch of the imagination. They're
I
top.
mean, right now they are.
Right now they looked really bad, but compared to like other regions, they're still good teams. It's just that you have to bring your A game if you're in the LPL every time, especially in these playoffs. And if what we're looking at right now, like these are the championship points, JDG, Top, Suning, and LGD, 3 of them are making Worlds no matter what. No matter what, 3 of those teams are going to make Worlds, which is really good because probably almost 100% going to be JD and Top. I'm super. Those are the top 2 teams I absolutely need to see at Worlds. So
with IG flopping out of playoffs like this, it's basically a two team race.
Oh, for sure.
Unless LGD just ride this momentum all the way to finals, it's just going to be those
that.
two.
It's great to see LGD really turning it around. We said that
finally, right?
Yeah, they started the season.
We
good.
believed in this team.
Yeah, and then they fell apart a bit, and now they're ramping in the final. I actually really want to see if they play like this. I want to see this team at Worlds. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I actually made. I made this comparison in the Discord chat before. LGD is basically like Golden Guardians is like the LGD of North America, and vice versa.
Yeah.
The idea of like this team actually just based on their style and how like obviously Golden Guardians is not as hyped as most people as like LGD was because just the names on LGD.
Yeah.
But the idea of like this aggressive style team with a potentially high ceiling coming out and being hyped and being potentially really good, but then flopping randomly. No one can ever really consistently believe in them. But then they go into playoffs and they face an old guard team that also has black and white in their colors, and they just stomp them 3-0.
I want to give you a hypothetical before we make our predictions. If hypothetically Top and JDG move on, they're the 2 that go automatically. I think that's fair to say.
Which means that Suning and LGD are out. They go to the Gauntlet.
And LGD wins the first round of the Gauntlet. Let's just say that hypothetical. Yeah. Because I think we're pretty hyped on LGD. Between FunPlus, IG, and Suning, who do you want to be that China 4th seed?
I mean, I wanted to be FunPlus.
Okay.
I love the idea of having the world champion at Worlds to defend.
That's fair. Who do you not want it to be out of those 3?
Who I wanted to not be?
Yeah.
IG.
Oh wow. Okay.
I want IG to not be out. They ruined V5's chance.
Gotcha.
Get the fuck out of
here. That's fair.
Like Suning at least beat V5. Like that. Like okay, so if V5, if you go, you at least beat V5. You prove that you were the better team. So I'm so fine. You get to go. You beat V5 in the regular season. You beat V5 in playoffs. They were convincing both times.
When IG's on though,
fuck off.
I get it. I understand.
You did the same in this thing, and we joke about this. IG did the exact same thing last year with Billy Gaming. This is before they were like a trash org and they were supporting a freaking creep like Fofo. But they were like a young upstart team that came online, made top 4 in the LPL out of nowhere after like not even existing really in spring. Came back, actually had a decent run. But then they didn't make the gauntlet to get a 3rd seed at Worlds because they didn't have enough points. All because IG blew their first round match.
Yep, that is absolutely true.
Literally the exact same thing. They blocked Billy from taking their rightful spot at Worlds. And they 100 thieves themselves into a matchup against a bunch of shit tier teams. Teams that were like only had points from spring JDG. And then fell off the face of the earth. I think it was Rogue Warriors and JDG.
Yep.
Because those teams were like
I don't know
those teams fell off the face of. It was one of those two. It was something like that because I think those teams were like good in spring and then they fell off the face of the planet in summer. But they had enough points from spring to make Gauntlet.
It was top.
Even though I think they didn't even make playoffs.
It was top.
Oh yeah. I know top was in there. But I know there was 4 teams total.
No, it was
like JDG. I thought it was like JDG top.
Nope.
And then the winners of that play each other.
Only three teams make the gauntlet in China before the fourth.
Gotcha.
So it was Top and JDG, and Top was fine, but JDG was the one that snuck in from their spring. They got 70 points from spring, but zero. They didn't even make playoffs in summer.
Yeah, they didn't even make playoffs.
And then, IG also lost in the first round. But that being said, I would say for the issue I have with writing off IG, I know I'm an IG fanboy, I get it. But my issue is that when they're on, actually, like not emptying their asses off, they are a top 3, top 4 team in the world. Like they are a world's title contender. It's just that they have to be on the whole time.
But and that's my issue though, is that you're basically saying you have to be on, and then
Yeah.
when they're off, they look like arguably like bottom 5 in China. Am I wrong?
I'll take bottom 10, but I don't know about bottom.
No, they bottom 10. They look really bad when they're off.
They do look
They're
really
like
bad.
look like they turbo it
Oh yeah,
when they're off.
that is
Like they look like absolute garbage. Like we're not talking about like they're not playoff caliber.
yeah.
Not
yeah.
even close.
Agreed.
When they're off.
That's but
Like
my concern is you have a team potentially. I get it, it's fair, but you'll have a team potentially not at Worlds that if they were playing good they could win Worlds. Like that's the thing. I don't think there's many teams like if Team WE per se are on, they're still not Worlds contenders if they're on, playing as best they can. Like you have teams like, is Suning a Worlds contender if they're best? If they're playing their best League of Legends?
I mean, it might be. They beat V5. They crushed V5.
I think it's they're better than Team WWE for sure. But
they beat V5. They arguably should have beat Top Esports in the regular season.
yeah. So
If they're playing their best League of Legends, they might be.
I still like you. I do want FunPlus Phoenix in first. I do think that's the team that I would want in first out of the gauntlet because I do like the defending champions coming. I do think FunPlus Phoenix as a team have a lot more synergy than IG does. But I think I still kind of want IG as well. So like that series is really going to tear me apart, that first gauntlet series. Anyway, we're not going to be talking about that. We're not talking about that series. We don't have to worry about that for like a week or two. Let's talk about our predictions for Top versus Suning and JDG versus LGD. Let's start with Top versus Suning. Do Suning continue the run that they are having here? That we thought they were a trash organization. They barely beat LNG in week 1 to slowly improving all the way into our top 4 in the world at one point. At like the current point, actually, I think they're 5 right now from our last week. But do they continue this run? Do they beat Top, who struggling last time we sold them? Is it possible?
I think they. I don't think they do.
No, I think
it's going to continue the trend of one team beating another team, then that team losing to the next team, and then that team losing to the next team.
Yeah, what's the
V5 beat FunPlus, V5 lose to Suning lose to Top Esports.
Is it a 3-0?
I'll give them 3-1.
I
think Suning can manage like one game. That's about it.
I think my issue is that it's similar to what I said with Mad Lions. It was a good break. This was a 2-week break for Top. Or I guess it was a week break, but it was like
not for Suning.
Yeah, not for Suning. Suning had to play V5, and I guess they had to mentally prepare for Suning or V5. It wasn't like a one or the other type scenario, but I think that it's a good mental reset. I think playoff time, you have Jackie Love, you have Knight, you have 369 if he can get back together. Karsa hopefully stops tilting off the face of the earth, and hopefully Yuanjo just kind of stays in the background. But
the only thing I hope for this is that you're talking about a Suning that was basically handed like the worst performing Victory 5 ever, and now you have to go from Mole running it down to Knight.
Yeah.
But I do think that the one thing that Suning showed in the series versus Victory 5 is something that I think will actually translate really well into Top Esports, and that's attacking bot lane.
Attacking bot lane, yep. Will Top be able to fix that scenario? That is what I want to see. Will they be able to patch up that weakness that that's been exposed? And I think Suning, you don't think they'll be able to patch it at all.
I think they won't be able to patch it, but it just like Suning just won't be the team to actually like beat it.
Gotcha. Raptors thinks both 3-0s, by the way. I think a
Yeah.
3-0 here, but I think a 3-0 is very, very is too bad compared to the rest. Yeah, because the rest are top elite level talent on top, like with
Imagine if they had PP God.
and imagine if PP God was on. At first, I was like, okay, at least he's V5, and V5 is good too. But now that V5's out, I want PP God back on top. like at least bring him over.
They're sending him over on loan.
Yeah. JDG versus LGD is the next one, though.
Yeah.
Raptor thinks 3-0. I'm assuming he means JDG 3-0s, but I don't know. LGD's on fire right now. I think this is
Well, I mean, he clarified for the Suning series where even though he thinks that that Uganja and Karsa are inferior to the matchups on the other side for Suning, that it's still just two top esports
That
favorite.
hurts me in the soul. I mean, I don't have any issue against this with him, but man, Karsa, man, that's my flashlight buddy.
That's about him, man. He was breaking out that Lee Sin, man,
Ugh,
the classic.
Ugh. But JDG versus LGD, this is the matchup of the week, in my opinion, out of all regions at the moment. This is the true test.
In before 3-0.
It could be a 3-0, and it would be very JDG-like to give us no fun to 3-0. So, I'm thinking it's a 3-2 JDG, but I think LGD's top side of the map is going to push JDG's top side of the map to the limit. With Zoom and Kanavi, I mean, oh my god. This is going to be Kanavi versus the current level Peanut. This is a series, man. Like, this is going to be a fantastic series. And I just think that it's going to come down to who in the jungle between Kanavi and Peanut is able to help their solo lanes better to just like get that slight advantage that you need. I think GA versus Gao is going to, and then, I mean, just the whole thing's great. The whole thing's great.
Longja versus
versus Zoom. Just, I do have JDG though. The junkie dumpster gamers. I got him 3-2.
I actually had the series. I had the series as a 3-0 right now.
Ooh, so you agree that it's gonna be a 3-0?
I think it's gonna be a 3-0 for LGD.
Oh shit! Hell, why? That's amazing. That's a bold. That is spicy.
I think it's just too. I think the stylistic matchup is just too strong. It's just too good for LGD. This is the momentum series.
Okay.
They're gonna ride it.
Is it just because you hate JDG?
I mean, I don't hate JDG.
You hate.
I just don't like them. I just don't love them like you. I just don't love them like you do.
I don't love JDG.
Yes, you do, dude.
I don't.
You love JDG.
There's...
It took everything in your power to not put them as number one.
Nope, that's
in your power
not
rankings.
even remotely close to number one in my power.
That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. And you know it.
Oh no.
You're just like, oh man, I'm glad Damwon is doing well in Korea.
No.
So I don't have to reveal. So I had to reveal my love yet.
Definitely,
I don't have to confess.
Definitely not a year and a half of podcasts of me just being infatuated with Damwon gaming style.
Nah, it's all a ploy.
Yeah, just a very long con by me.
Yeah, you just have like the JDG body pillow, but you just put like a big sign that says Damwon Gaming over top of the logo.
Uh-huh.
We all know who you really loved.
Yeah, we sure
We
do.
all know who you really love. You're trying to hide it, but we know who's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's Yagao and Loken.
I do love Loken. Idol back. We haven't seen Idol in a few weeks, but man, I got him so bad when he said Loken was trash, and he just stepped up the next like 2 weeks after that, and I was like, it's not him. Ben was the problem, man. I'm telling you.
Ben is the problem.
And I was 100%
Going into
right on
Korea,
that.
Ben is still the problem.
I was 100% correct on that one. Oh man.
But no, I legitimately think that, and I know this is me in China, so it's probably gonna bite me on the ass just like it does everything else.
66% win rate, you know.
I know, but it's like me trying to pick against you in China.
China's my baby.
I think that stylistically, this team just matches up really well into what JDG like to do. They're much more controlled, and they kind of just let Kanavi do his own thing. But I feel like Peanut, if he's playing on current form, is just going to jungle dip.
That is true. Peanut at current form is unstoppable at the moment. It's gonna take like I had mentioned. I think it's gonna be a 3-2. I think it's gonna be a bloodbath because I think if Kanavi is on like a good form, he's gonna match up with Peanut on God form, and then you have Zoom like we mentioned, and your Gao, and then oh my god, it's so much.
Yep.
It's so much on both sides. This is a world's finals level matchup. Is basically how it's going to be, and I'm really excited to watch
but I
it.
feel like at the same, I think that though, if it's going to come down to a bloodbath and people on form, I think on form Peanut right now, I think he just crushes him though.
Okay.
Because I feel like if JDG tried to opt for fights against LGD when LGD are running things right now, that they just outwork them in the early game.
That's
And I think JDG's draft style is way too one dimensional. It's literally get Zoom on a tank or Ornn, and try to play for mid to late game.
I kind of disagree with that with JDG. I think JDG has too many hard bans that you have to do against them. Like you have to potentially ban Yagao Zoe. Yagao's like
Or GA could just play Zoe.
Fate, that is true.
And Peanut could
But
just play. And Peanut could just play Literally.
Yeah, but it's like like the Nidalee from I think the Nidalee on Kanavi is the most banned champion like in the game like for a specific champion. But there's just so many you have to ban for JDG. They have so many just amazing talent on specific champions. We haven't even seen Zoom's Yorick this split, I don't believe. Like off the top of my head, I don't think so. But Zoom's Yorick is disgusting. 1v5 level. Because he's in a side lane and he's never with any of his teammates. But it's so good, and it's just like JG's tough to draft against in my opinion. I don't think they're one dimensional, but they're so good at that dimension that and so many champions fit that dimension that it makes them hard to draft against, if that makes sense. It sounds a little weird.
That's the thing though. I legitimately think that if LGD come out and they start picking essentially JDG picks, and they start to force JDG into possibly even banning champions that they would normally take for themselves, that's a game changer.
That is true.
Because then you're literally saying teams that would be normally must bans against JDG has to respect now because your enemy can play them.
It is tough to win team fights against JDG though. They have phenomenal team fight. Lamau and Jazoom and their coordination in team fights is unbeatable nearly. Like there are so many team fights I think that they should absolutely lose. There should be no way that they're winning this team fight, and they just pulled off by flawless execution.
Yeah, but that's the other thing I think as well is that we went into the IG series just assuming that IG was just the better version of LGD.
Fair.
And just like now we're just assuming that like JDG is just going to be able to run draft and then just outrun team fights. But I feel like LGD, if they play their style and play like how they played against IG, you never give JDG a chance into the game.
Okay. I like it though. I like the spice, and I think seriously, if you're watching, this is the must-watch series of all regions this week. Not a single series compares to this one. Mad vs G2 is good.
This is why I said in before 3-0.
Yeah, Mad vs G2 is a good series. SO4 SK probably a good series. Team Liquid Golden Guardian is going to be a good series, but this one takes the cake on all of them. All right.
C9 versus FlyQuest.
That's going to be a blowout.
No. Yes, FlyQuest 3-0 C9.
Yeah, no. Just like Worlds. Don't worry about it. Or just like the finals, I should say, of spring. Don't worry about it, Ryan. You're safe. Alrighty, let's go over to the LCK for 10 minutes now, as we have wrapped up the LPL. LPL went decent there. That was pretty quick. Or not quick, it was a little detailed there.
It was never quick.
Never. No, LEC was quick. LCK is about to be real quick as well. And I'm sorry, LCK. I mean, Raptor.
I hate you.
Raptor,
I'm sorry, LCK. I hate you.
Mock you all the time. I hate how predictable you are. I think you got really good teams.
Except for today.
If I can get to the damn thing. But here it goes. But it makes me feel I think I would be doing if you told me
that I would have a 33 game win streak in any region, I would be flipping out. Like, look at 8-0, 8-0, 8-0, 8. I haven't lost a game since July 19th when I picked Prince to beat Hanwha Life. Like, that was the last time I lost a game, and that was on July 19th. The next series starts on August 20th. That is a perfect month of predictions. But the issue with that is it's super predictable. I understand. I did watch DRX versus Prince, and that was a big issue, very big issue right there. And it's gonna show in the power rankings at the end of the global top 10. But they still won at the end of the day. DRX still won the series, even though they looked terrible in said series. However, the games went by. Gen.G beat Sandbox. T1 beat Afreeca. T1 dominated Afreeca. KT beat Prince. DRX beat Hanwha Life. Damwon destroyed Dynamics. Afreeca beat Sandbox, so Sandbox was officially eliminated at that. Gen.G annihilated Hanwha Life, and DRX annihilated Prince. Just kidding. They almost lost to Prince of all teams. It was just like, it was bad. It was really bad. So I guess we could talk about that, since there was something interesting in that sense.
Yeah, DRX legitimately not only lost a game to Seolhae-won Prince, but almost lost Game 3 to Seolhae-won Prince, and relied essentially on Prince throwing the game to win, to actually win the series.
Relying on a team on a 16-game losing streak is not a good thing. I mean, I guess
playing with a bunch of subs. I mean, at least they're not playing with Mickey.
Fair.
Keeney's in, and he's actually looked okay.
Yeah, anything's better than Mickey. Somewhat. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, look at these teams on the bottom of Korea: 16 losing streak, 6 losing streak, 8. Dynamics hasn't won since they beat T1. Like, Sandbox had a 4 game.
But I mean, just the fact that Dynamics beat T1 at one point.
Yeah, but since then, T1 hasn't lost and Dynamics haven't won.
Yeah. The reverse momentum swing.
No. Actually, T1 did lose. No. Yeah, they did lose to Gen.G.
They also Gen.G because I'm a champion of the best. That's what makes me the best at Korea. I legitimately nailed the Gen.G T1 predictions both times.
Unfortunately, you are still down.
I know.
Like
no, see, I got the wins that matter. You're winning all these like scrub matches, like Dynamics and Sandbox and KT and shit. I'm actually winning the top 2 matches.
I'll
give you a Afreeca T1. That was a missed call on my part entirely.
My bad from you.
But I take being 2-0 in Gen.G T1 than I would like KT and like Sandbox or whatever.
Yeah. So Ryan either just disconnected or reconnected. There was a weird Discord sound right there. Ryan, are you here? No. Okay. So, that being said, if I win these next 8 games, I will have a 41 game win streak to end the year in Korea. That's almost a perfect half split. Welcome back.
I got disconnected again. Yay.
yeah. It made the Discord noise, and I was like, oh no, you're gone. But that being said, Ryan, you are going into the final week. I beat you in EU. You beat me in NA. I beat you in LPL. I am currently up 2 games on you in the LCK.
Well, this is also the LCK. This is not the region where you come out with hype picks.
No, unfortunately,
it's unfortunate.
Not. Yeah, unfortunately not. You've also like I keep saying mine, like how I've been like on because I have this big streak. You have also gone in the 31 games. You are 27-4. No slouch. like even though I've been on a like massive 31 game win streak or 33 game win streak, you're 29-4. Sorry, 29-4.
Hey.
So that's like I haven't gained much ground on you. I was able to catch you because you were 2 up, and then I passed you by 2. But you are still absolutely in the running here. So with that being said, do you have anything else that you want to talk about outside of DRX? Embarrassingly almost losing, should have lost to APK.
I
Or
mean,
Prince.
this is literally, yeah. I mean, this is just a continuation of all the issues we've been having with DRX
Mhm.
ever since like week 2 or 3 in LCK.
Yeah.
They lost to KT. They almost lost to KT in the second round robin. They should have lost to Damwon Gaming in the first round robin, 2-0. And then they did lose to Damwon 2-0 in the second round robin.
We're-
Conceivably, they should have lost to Gen G when they played each other as well. It literally just came down to Gen G grouping as 4 people like a bunch of apes, walking down a choke point, chasing a Galio, who has taunt and flash.
Man, Gen G and grouping up as 4 people into AoEs. Man,
Yeah.
it's almost like they did that against T1
I
as
know.
well.
It's I mean that's the balance, man. It's what won me that Gen G T1 series, but it also is what lost me the DRX Gen G series.
So we are like, I mean, that's a lot of negatives. It's very similar to IG.
Yeah.
Lots of negatives. They are 15-2. They are still in first place in Korea. They are still even ahead of Damwon Gaming, even though Damwon Gaming has a very much superior win-loss record of 30-5 compared to 31-11. 30-5 is a really good draw. They've lost one game outside of the 2 series they lost. Like,
Yeah.
almost
But the way
everything's a 2-0.
the thing is though, I compare DRX right now less to IG in the LPL. I compare them more to Team Liquid in NA.
Okay.
Where a lot of
People
times
will
they,
mock
a
you
lot
for
of times
that.
it where a lot. Well, I know. And stylistically, no.
Yeah.
Draft wise, no. But in terms of how they're
Result-wise.
winning, when realistically they shouldn't be, that was like Team Liquid's regular season to a T.
Beginning of the ring.
So I mean, there were so many games, even down to the wire, that they should have lost. Like we're talking about, like in the beginning, they could have lost the Immortal series.
Yep.
That relied
true.
on them having multiple throws, and that was in the last week.
That is true. And then, like, even with DRX, they absolutely should have lost 2-0 to Damwon in the first series. They should have, like, lost to Gen G. They should have lost to KT the second time around. Should have lost to Prince. Like, they're
And they did lose to KT in the first round.
They did in the first round. But they're coming out on top all these coin flips. And it makes them look... They are a very vulnerable top 1 in Korea right now. Imagine saying they should have lost the
Yeah.
points. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
issue.
And see, that's the difference between them and IG, because like, at least IG will show up and they'll stomp the top teams.
Yeah, DRX doesn't stomp anyone. It feels like
Yeah,
that's
They
a big
haven't.
issue.
they have it since week 1. So in a way, it's like, what does this say about your region as a whole? That your number 1 team in the league is relying on enemy team mistakes and trying to micro your way out of situations, not playing the map appropriately, not having the right read on how to play it in the meta game, like having questionable draft picks, to the point where your number 1 team in the league is on the verge of losing a series to probably the worst or second worst team in the league and one of the worst teams in the world.
It would be like if Team Liquid or C9 was just getting their ass handed to them by CLG, and then CLG threw.
Yeah.
Because I put Prince and Hama Life on the same tier as CLG. Those are my bottom 3 teams by far. There's no one even close to those 3 teams.
Yeah, at least C9, even in their slump, they crushed CLG.
Mm-hmm.
Like, annihilated them. And that's something that Damwon does on a regular basis.
Damwon does that
So
to
what
every
is
team.
so what exactly is DRX's excuse?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys know, I've always considered Damwon the best team in Korea right now, even if they're number 2 record-wise. I think that they are by far superior to any other team in Korea at the moment. That being said, we still have we have 3 teams going to Worlds. We have 4 teams locked in playoffs. The only playoff race we have left is Afrika Freaks versus KT, with Afrika having a very heavy advantage in that, with being 2 series up with 2 series to go. They just need to win 1 series. They actually just need to win 1 game, I believe. If who won? Like, let's see, Afrika versus KT. No, KT. Actually, if KT, how's the tiebreaker work? God damn it.
I think I think it's different in Korea than it is.
If 2 teams have the same record, ties will be broken by. Game record is first. Okay. So
Yeah.
game record is first. So that head to head will not matter unless. So Afrika has to go 0-4. And if they go 0-4, KT has to go. KT can go through 4-1. They can still go 4-1. So that's good, I guess. But man, it's not pretty. It's very, very tough for KT. Considering KT has to face Damwon this week. Oh boy. But let's actually get right into predictions with that. Speaking of that, do you have anything to say about Afrika versus KT, or do you think it's Afrika's all the way?
I mean, I think it's pretty much Afrika's all the way. I think KT might be able to work out a game, if they're missing it better, running it down, like Amy can take advantage of that. But I feel like their top side is just a little bit too skewed in the favor of the Afrika Freaks.
Gotcha. So, I mean, that being said, we have T1 versus Damwon first. Let's actually talk that one. T1 and Damwon, the two hottest teams in Korea right now, followed by DRX, but DRX really does not feel like it. But
No.
T1, however, their 6 wins: Prince, Hanwha, Dynamic, Sandbox, KT, Afrika. They have not faced Genji, Damwon, or DRX in 7 games now. Damwon, however, has crushed every team in his path outside of Genji. But they crushed Genji in the wins, but they lost the one game. But
Genji, second best team in Korea.
yeah, I agree with that.
They beat Damwon one time. It was actually convincing.
Yeah, I think so. Who do you have? Do you think T1 first off, does T1 start Faker, or do they keep going with Closer in this series? And second off,
they keep I think they keep Closer in.
I agree
First
with
of
that.
all, just
And does T1 pull the upset off Damwon yet?
no.
No. 2-0 or 2-1 for Damwon?
Not even. I would say it's probably a 2-0 for Damwon.
I agree. I think my only worry with Closer is that he has been skill checking, and skill checking. But he's skill checking people like Mickey. He's skill checking it's not
Skill checking Fly.
Fly. There's another one. They're not great mid laners, And now he's going into Showmaker, arguably the best mid laner in the world at the moment, right there with Knight and Rookie right now. And
Chovy.
I like Chovy, but
Chovy's the best in the world.
I don't think Chovy's the best in the world, but I do think Chovy is a top 5 mid laner. But
he's the best player in the world.
But I think Showmaker right now is it's gonna be insanely hard to skill check him, and I don't think that's gonna happen. And
not to mention the jungle difference.
I mean, Cuz has been playing very, very good. Unfortunately, he's going against
doesn't matter.
Canyon.
It's Canyon.
Yeah, Canyon's down.
Good luck.
And then Nogri against Kana. The issue is Damwon strength matches up to T1 strength right now, and unfortunately, Damwon strength is stronger than T1 strength.
Is that unfortunate though?
I mean, for T1 fans, it is, in my opinion.
Well, we're not T1 fans.
That's true. That is true. But I think
You're a JDG fan.
I'm not a JDG fan.
Yes, you are.
No. So we both had Damwon 2-0. KT
Yes.
versus Afrika. You
Sure.
were briefly mentioning it before. Let me actually pull up my predictions because I think this is a closer game than most.
Oh, I would definitely say I think it's a lot closer than most. But
Most of these Korean games?
I think Afrika just across the board just take KT. It's just going to come down to whether or not, I feel like it does come down to whether or not KT just kind of shows up as a team as opposed to their individual parts. And it's the parts showing up, Afrika just run this series.
Yeah.
But KT has managed to pull off random stuff just based on their team play.
And they are going to be fighting desperately for the playoff spot because, like we said, they essentially need Afrika to go 0-4 this week, and they need to 2-0 this week series-wise. But they need this game to start.
They're going to be the ones to take down Damwon.
Dude, I'd be so pissed. But so who do you think? So do you think Afrika still?
I think
I also have Afrika. By the way, I have all my predictions set, so I'm not screwing you out of.
I do too. So.
Yep. So it's up to the gods to see if you have two differences. I would have maybe been a little bit more bold to spice it up, but I also, even though I know it's been like an easy prediction, a 41 game win streak sounds really nice. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
If only it was 45.
I was considering KT, but I feel like I feel like this is too much of a game for Afrika to lose.
Gotcha.
For KT to be reasonable to win. I think they maybe take a game,
Gotcha.
but that's about it.
All right, next one. Sandbox versus Hanwha Life. Sandbox now eliminated for playoffs. Hanwha Life eliminated both in Hanwha Life and Prince are
Eliminated from the world.
Yeah, they've been eliminated for a while, but Sandbox was just eliminated this week. Hanwha and Solomon Prince also aren't fighting for anything because they are the bottom two teams. Is there
Wow,
relegation?
this Friday series of games, man.
Not great.
What
not
a
great.
great series.
It's not great at all. Both games completely meaningless for all four teams involved.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they don't have relegations because they're going into franchise.
Gotcha. So even if they did have relegations, this would still be completely meaningless as Hanwha Life and Prince would be there at least 3 games out with only 2 games to go. So that being said, I'm just gonna pick Sandbox, I guess. Very tough to pick though, because like, again, completely meaningless game. Anything can go. Nothing is riding on this game whatsoever.
Nothing is sacred in these games.
Yeah, so this is where Hanwha and Prince could steal wins from trolling.
God, Hanwha managing to get a win over Yamato Cannon.
Do you think
Never.
it'll happen? Nope. Sandbox all the way
No. Yeah, Sandbox, man.
What about
Can't believe
Dynamics versus Prince?
if Yamato Cannon can't win against Hanwha Life with nothing on the line, come on.
I mean, I'm not gonna hold it against them as well at the same time.
I
because-
will.
I mean, you can, but I'm
I will.
not
It's
gonna hold.
Hanwha Life. They're arguably the worst team in the world.
Yeah, but if you can also just pick Teemo support here, like Misfits, just go with it because you can have fun because there's nothing, doesn't have any playoff implications, no relegations implications. It is a
but there's
free-for-all
honor.
game.
There's honor.
There
in
is
this
no
win.
honor in this. There is literally
There
zero
is
honor.
honor.
No, that
Are you
that
gonna
is
go?
a lie.
Are you gonna go back to the back and say, "Oh man, we lost to Hanwha Life Esports"?
Yeah, are you gonna remember losing the Hanwha Life
Yes.
Esport in the next year? Like, no.
Yes. Yes, you will.
All right, Dynamics versus Prince, same exact situation. I'm going Dynamics just cause, but man,
Yeah.
it's
It's hard. It's a tough call, to say the least.
yeah. Do you have Dynamics?
I
as
actually I have Prince this game.
well? Nice. That's a difference.
Yeah, I had Prince. I don't know why.
It's
I
a free for all game. Free for all game, meaningless
Yeah,
game.
I mean it's literally. I think it's also I also think it's come down to the fact that Dynamics has burned me too many times,
Is that?
and I feel like they've been exposed ever since like the T1 win. Whereas I feel like Prince, at the very least, especially with their sub players, they've actually shown something
yeah.
akin to a ceiling that they can reach.
This will probably be a game day that you just kind of skip. I might not even watch these games. I might just check. I might not even watch the highlights.
There's
of these two games.
literally no implications. Like
There's
we just
no-
created implications for ourselves because
yeah.
we're trying to
I might watch
outpredict each other,
Dynamics
that's about
Prince,
it.
but that I probably won't watch the other one.
And half the time I probably wouldn't even watch. I probably just
might.
look at what the results were.
I
Like,
might.
oh, hey,
Yeah,
I lost again.
it
Who would
really-
have thought?
That's how it's been these few weeks. Oh, I made a spicy pick. Well, it lost.
Yeah, again.
Yeah, all 4 50-50s in the last like 5 weeks have
Yeah.
been my favor.
It's like I know. It's like I'm IG. Nothing but tails.
Ugh. Afrika versus Gen G. Afrika might, if they lose to KT, have something on the line here. Might. If Afrika
Yeah.
beats KT, though, this is a meaning. Well, it wouldn't be meaningless because Gen G is still technically. How many? They can
I
still
think-
get second.
Yes, that's the thing. I think Gen G is still fighting for like playoff seeding right
And
now.
playoff seeding is vital in Korea.
Oh yeah, top
So-
5 gauntlet in Korea makes a lot of difference.
So
Gen G knows, but Gen G does know as well that playoff seeding doesn't matter too much. You can be seeded to the top seed and still just get 3-0'd.
that is true. That is true. So do they take down Afrika?
Yes.
Yep. Of course they do.
Yep. I think Gen G's just playing good league right now, and Afrika is just going to be outmatched.
Yep. All right. Speaking of seeding wise, Damwon versus KT. If Damwon beats T1 in the other game, then they would just have to beat KT and they make first seed because they will win the tiebreaker off of games no matter what. They are 6 games ahead of DRX right now.
Yep.
So they just they have to go 2-0 though. They don't have to, I guess. They have to at least win one, but they have to probably go 2-0 potentially.
I think they go 2-0 even if they lock first.
Well, like they won't have first. They won't have first locked if no matter what at this point.
No, I know. But even if they did have first locked, they would probably still just try to crush this game.
Okay.
I feel like that's just how they're playing right now. They're not pussyfooting around with these teams.
Okay, that's fair. I think it's another 2-0 for Damwon as well.
Yeah.
Dan.
I think Damwon just crushing it.
And that will be the official elimination for KT to make Worlds. Are we sad about that? Not really. That roster is a big disappointment.
Indifferent.
Surprising, I know.
Change your goddamn roster. Fix it, then we'll talk.
T1 versus DRX in possibly match of the week. I would say Damwon versus T1 could be, but DRX T1 probably a little bit closer, in my opinion.
I feel like this one's a lot closer, in my opinion.
So, who do you have in this one? Because DRX coming off a really big struggle. T1 will be coming off of their first loss potentially against Damwon, and that might be the first shake of confidence towards closer. But this is again another actual real test for T1. As is this 6-game win streak them really heating up and becoming a world's threat, or is it just them beating up on the bad teams of Korea and just they're really not that good still? I have T1 beating DRX. Actually, DRX really scared me on that loss to Prince. Like that was like that was the last pillar of hope shaken.
Yeah.
And I think that T1, even though we meme them all the time for them not looking great, they're heating up. I don't think they're as good as Damwon. I don't think they're going to be able to beat Damwon at all. But the rest of the Korean League, I think T1's probably going to go to finals at very least.
They're number 1.
They're going to Worlds. I'm seeing the pattern.
First seed.
No,
it's coming.
No.
Faker's getting subbed in the last set, and they're going 3-0.
Do you think Faker comes in for DRX? If closer loses to Damwon, does Faker come in for DRX?
I don't think so. I think if they're putting him in versus Showmaker, they'll put him in against Chovy as well.
Okay.
Trial by fire.
Okay. Because if T1, by the way, in this hypothetical, if they win both games and Damwon somehow loses to KT, I know that's a lot to ask, but if T1 would leapfrog all the way to second best team in Korea in the regular season.
Well, to be fair, if they're literally going on to the week and they beat Damwon and DRX, they're probably just the best team in Korea.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, they'll absolutely. They will be like skyrocketing through my rankings again. I'm like, well, they're back. They're welcome back again.
It's like, hey, there's T1. They're back. They're back in the top 10 after not being here in like weeks now.
So did you end up picking T1? I forgot. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing, dude. I actually picked T1 in Strafe.
Gotcha. But
I actually have him in Strafe, but the more I thought about it, I feel like I need to change it to DRX.
Okay. Why is that?
And it's not even before I even knew that you picked them. I was like, the more I thought about it, I was like, this is like a series where DRX pulls off some stupid bullshit and they win.
Okay.
I feel like this feels like the Gen G series all over again, where I'm like, Gen G, like T1, based on current form and what we've seen from them, they should probably just win this series. And that's why I feel like DRX is just going to win the series.
Fair enough. And again,
they're going to pick off a stupid mistake or just a bad call, and then that's just going to give them the series win. It'll probably be like a 2-1 win for DRX.
All right. So with that being said, Dynamics versus Hanwha Life. I have Dynamics. Do you have Hanwha Life?
I have Dynamics.
All right. So we will at best be tied
Tie.
after 45 or after 90 games.
Hey, this I mean, this is the sort of thing that happened in China. It did not work out for me.
To be fair, at least it's only 2 this time.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah,
it's not
that's true.
6.
I'm not. Oh man, I'm picking Hobble Life and like to go 2-0 and
Yeah.
Prince to win and
Yeah.
Afrika to beat Gen G and 2-0 the week and shit.
Yeah, so we have
KT Rolster has to go 2-0 against Damwon and Afrika.
yeah, so you don't have that to worry about. At least you just have you're just
Yeah.
trusting Prince, who's arguably the second worst team in the world, or for the major
Yeah.
regions that you're predicting them. to
I'm
win.
trusting in Prince and DRX, who almost lost to Prince.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's not
let's
great,
do it.
but hey, hey, to be fair, even though they lost to Prince, is there if you had to pick a miracle team to like throw a miracle to you, DRX isn't that bad you know, for a prediction thing. So it's not
Yeah.
the end of the world. It's not like you're picking CLG like I had to in the tiebreaker. Okay, in NA. All right. With that being said, I think we will be all done with Korea. See, under
Yeah.
3 hours, and we got the major regions done. Hour 30 minutes of that is NA. The timestamps are gonna look NA, EU, LPL, Korea. It's gonna look pretty funny. But with that being said, do you want to join us, Damon, for the wild card? We got some wild cards to talk about now.
Do indeed. Hello, hello.
For me, I thought that he was. I thought I was like,
he
oh, he fell asleep in Korea again.
No, I was gonna say I thought he went AFK or something.
I was just waiting for something a bit more theatrical, you know?
Listen, okay, I'm an accountant. I don't do theatrics well. Alrighty.
It's like it's theatrics. Damon, get your ass in the call.
And then I just dip out of the call and you can do it on your own again.
Oh man, did you really want me to talk about wild cards?
I
Hey,
mean, we've
'Cause I'll
actually
just
been
make
watching
shit
Wild
up.
Cards, you and I,
That-
Ryan. You don't need to
Hey,
pretend
man,
that
I'll
you're
just-
not interested.
I know. Well,
You
I'm
don't
not
get to
gonna say
lie
I'm
to
not
me anymore.
interested. I'm
No.
not gonna say I'm not interested, but I will. I literally know. I know next to nothing about these regions, so I will make shit up.
That would actually be very funny.
That-
The
that-
scene
hey,
is
that's why
completely illogical.
I gotta give a
Just
shout
gonna
out
make
to
up
Damon.
make up some fake history.
I got to shout out to Damon. He's got our Discord. If you want to join, it will be in the link below, by the way. But he's gotten our Discord actually really pumped up about some wildcard games, and I'm really excited about that.
Turns out people dig storylines, man. I'm just here to spread the good word.
So speaking of
Good word.
storylines,
In the church. In the Church of PP God.
Yeah.
People God and God Gilius.
In the name of Faker, PP God, and God Gilius, nah, man.
the Holy Trinity of League.
Oh,
Indeed.
man. All right, let's go to the CB LOL where we did not have
Start
any
it off.
games this last week, but we do have the first games of the playoffs coming up.
Yep, one of the only regions to actually take advantage of a full week to prepare. They do have a shorter overall playoffs, so they'll be finally starting up.
Yep,
It's exciting.
Only 4 teams make it here. So the first game is Pain Gaming versus Prodigy. We had mentioned earlier. Let me actually pull up the wildcard spreadsheet. But we had mentioned earlier how Prodigy really came into the playoffs for the what did you mention, the first time?
Yeah,
ever?
so I had made the point to mention that throughout the entire season, Prodigy had never been above 5th place until the final week, where on their tiebreaker with Santos Esports, they drew with them on final game record, but they took the tiebreaker over them. So
yeah. So then they just squeaked in at the end. Pain Gaming's
First
always
time-
been there to the top.
although it's kind of a crazy matchup even to think about, this is supposedly 1st versus 4th in the region. We're talking about a game spread of only 3 matches, and Prodigy won the last 2 times they played Pain Gaming.
Yes.
So for as much as it is to say supposedly the easiest to predict, if you didn't know anything going into it, for example, you would see the 1st and the 4th seed. But this is by no means a decided matchup.
That's for sure. And the issue is, even you also have names like Robo and BRTT on Pain Gaming. You might not know a lot of the names on Prodigy. So who should people be looking out for on Prodigy?
Well, the mid laner, I call him Din Kato, but I'm pretty sure the N is like with the accented off. I have no idea how to say it,
Gotcha.
but I call him Din Kato.
Listen, I've butchered millions of names on here over the years.
He's the one who I consider to be their most influential, and that's kind of the both sides of the spectrum kind of player, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Whereas their Rock is their top side. FMB and Yampi play really well together, but Din Kato is, live or die by his sword.
Fair enough. And so with Pain, they have BRTT, of course, and Robo as their top two.
There's a bit more history behind the names on Pain Gaming for sure.
Yes, for sure. Those are the teams that when you think Brazil, you think BRTT basically. And
even their mid laners, Kami and Tinones, I mean, both of those are legendary names of the scene. You have Karyok, who I believe is actually the leader in Player of the Game awards for Pain, despite the huge names around him.
Yes. I can double check that real quick for you, but yeah, Karyok has the most in the league, tied with Revolta on Kaboom.
Got the junglers popping off, the two of them.
Even Issa actually has 4. So even though the big names of BRTT and Robo, they actually have they don't have any of they only have one player of the game each.
This is actually one of my favorite players to kind of just think about his time being a Japanese player of all nationalities in the Brazilian league. You think of all these Korean imports that play in the wildcard regions just because of the value that their nationality kind of brings and gives them a bit of credibility. But for whatever reason, this Japanese lad who's actually got residency in Brazil is popping off. He's pretty good.
Oh, yeah, so what's your prediction for this series? Is it a close one?
I am still going to go with Pain over Prodigy. I would say it's going to end up being a 3-1. The name value, the overall skill that I expect from the teams is still going to be in favor of Pain. But by no means should you write off Prodigy. These games will be close. They will be bloody at that. Both teams like to play very aggressive. It's just that I would expect, kind of as I said with Din Kato, he's a bit more prone to kill his team as he is to pop off. So it'll be an interesting series. I could certainly see it going either way. I'm going to go Pain 3-1.
Gotcha. I also did predict Pain on my app. So I do got Pain as well. Even though
it's too flippy for me to go 3-0 either way.
No, I agree with that. I don't think it'll be a 3-0 whatsoever. And speaking of another very close series, we have INTZ and Kaboom on the other side of it. So that one, they actually tied in the regular season. So it's, even though INTZ technically has the second seed, it's pretty much identical.
Yeah, so it's actually once again decided this time by not overall record, but this time decided by their head-to-head record. INTZ has owned the last 2 games, but similar to Prodigy, Kaboom won against INTZ on the last day, so maybe have a bit of momentum in that regard.
Gotcha. Yep. And that one also is looking at any big standout players for that.
I mean, you're going to have to look, obviously, at Revolta. He's been incredible all season long for Kaboom. I made a joke of it last week, but Duds the Boy is one of my favorite names, but he's also one of my favorite players to watch in those games.
I love that name.
So those would be my 2 to look out for. The bot lane for INTZ is very good. Redbert is a name you would probably know.
Yep. And let's see. Let me pull up just make sure. Yeah, even though... Yeah, I have Kaboom winning in a 3-2. I think this one was. I think this was just going to be a back and forth series. Actually, I don't know who's actually going to come out in CBLOL. Like previous years, we've had Flamingo be the top seed, unquestionable. And still,
there was a while where it was the Red Canids.
Yeah, and it's just we had even INTZ was an upset when they beat Flamingo, and it was unfortunate for CBLOL as a region because then they got crushed at MSI. But it was
and then there was also the time where it was Team 1 beat out all the favorites, the team of young rookies, and then got stomped in the play-ins at Worlds.
Yep, that's the big issue with CBLOL is they tend to have a really big upset team get through, and then it makes them look bad on the world stage, but overall they're not terrible as a region whatsoever.
It is kind of funny how some regions have the knack for having upsets, kind of like how the Chiefs always manage to lose and OPL ends up sending teams that weren't expected to, and then you have teams regions like the LCL or the LJL that always send their perennial winners.
Yep. And then, so I guess that upset team maybe, will be Prodigy,
maybe that's the one this year.
It's one to look out for. I actually like Kaboom. They're my dark horse pick. And if we wanted to go ahead and jump into predictions for that second matchup, I actually have Kaboom winning in a 3-2 over INTZ in this one. This one's going to be my series to watch. I know Pain and Prodigy is going to be closer than expected. It is still probably Pain favored, though. This one is going to be the one to keep an eye out for.
Agreed.
There's a lot of bad blood in that regard, too. Very big organizations, big rivalry.
We're both on the Kaboom train for a 3-2 match as well.
You could say this is for Kaboom.
Yes, you can. All right. That's CB LOL. Let's talk about, for 2 seconds,
Yeah,
the
all
LCL.
of it's about all it deserves. Here's second 1, UOL 1. Here's second 2, Gambit 1.
And they were both 3-0s, exactly
And they
as
were
we
not
told
close.
You. And they weren't close. Exactly what you told
We
told
both
you.
said this last week. We are not surprised. I woke up both mornings on Saturday and Sunday. I was like, oh, was it worth missing? Oh, yep, it was. Okay, great.
Yep. Unfortunately, Crow Crowd and One Breath Gaming did exactly what we thought. I gave Crow Crowd that 1% chance to beat Gambit.
They had the added benefit of not playing UOL,
Yeah.
but they had the negative disadvantage of playing Gambit. So
Yeah. And we actually do not have to predict UOL versus Gambit because they get a week
we've got
off.
a week off.
So that's it.
Unlike the CB Law, who took their playoff break leading into their semifinals, these guys do it between the semifinals and the finals. So it will actually be Sunday morning next week, the day of our next podcast, that we'll know.
Yeah,
That'll be a good one, so I'll be excited to talk about
I am
it.
excited about that one a little bit. But for this week, LCL already done.
Congratulations.
Out of the way. It's exactly what it's the Korea of the wild cards.
True.
It happened exactly how we expected. All right, so now let's go over to the LJL where we had 2 pretty exciting
A
series.
bit more exciting, indeed.
Yeah, much more exciting. We had Crest Gaming take down the Hawks. the
Who woke us off? Bangkok's Gaming.
Yes, I apologize for not doing the full name.
Who's counting?
Yeah, they did a 3-1. It was we thought the Hawks maybe would take it, but I think we both predict 3-0s. I think.
I think I predicted either 3-1 or 3-0, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha.
I knew that Crest Gaming picked the SoftBank Hawks as opposed to picking Burning Core, and so that was the matchup they preferred, and I felt that their confidence would be enough. And honestly, I mean, there is a distinction between the top 4 and the bottom 4 in that league.
Mm-hmm. And then DFM versus Burning Core was pretty close at a 3.
It was a really good series in the terms of really shit gameplay, but very entertaining.
Yeah, it was.
It's the NA of
Yeah.
wild cards. It's your FlyQuest versus EG. It's like, do really either of these teams deserve to win this series? Maybe not, but someone has to, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. That, like Raptor said, Raptors can still believe the DFM dynasty will fall this split.
I've been calling the fall of the DFM dynasty for 3 splits now.
Still hasn't happened. It's what Jat always said in Spring Split this year. You can't call Team Liquid dead until they're officially dead. Type scenario.
And then they die, and then it's great.
And then they died, and it wasn't great. But actually, it could have been. It was great in the sense that actually, like I mentioned before, it brought us Tactical as the main starter, and it actually was probably better for the team overall. But
in the end, certainly.
Yes, in the end, at the present moment of that, it was not great. But
there is a term for that. It's just growing pains, and unfortunately, both TL struggled with their growing pains this spring, and Detonation Focus Me, I imagine, will have a very painful growing off season because this is the time, I will call it now, they will not win this.
Gotcha. So you do not believe. So Saturday we have.
I would say.
Sorry.
I'm actually fairly confident they don't make it past this next round. I think Crest Gaming is actually significantly better than the current DFM. I know they have their playoff buff, and I know that I could very well be saying this again next week. If they were to make it to the finals, there is no way V3 or Sengoku lets DFM pass them this time, but I would say they lose against Crest Gaming.
Gotcha.
Just on skill right now.
That's very fair. Before that, we do have V3 versus Sengoku in the winner's side of it.
I'm so excited.
This one should be a good. This is the series to watch, even though DFM is the big storyline as the franchise of Japan. This is the 2 teams that have been popping off this summer and in spring even. For
it's
Japan.
Blank Empyrean versus Boogie and Ace, and man, this one's gonna be really good. I'm very excited for this matchup.
Yeah, Blank Empyrean on the same like playing Japan. Like imagine that like 3-4 years ago.
They are quality SKT level players.
Yeah, and they're playing in the LJL. Like imagine saying
Blank's a world champion, isn't he?
Blank? Did he? I think he
Wasn't
might have.
he on the one where Bengi subbed in? Was that year?
I don't. Let's see, Louis.
Someone please remind me which year Blank was on T1.
In
It was season 6 or 5, I want to say.
He was.
Raptor says season 6. I think that's right.
SKT. He played.
Was he not a world champion?
He played in 2018, 2000. Would that have been season 6? Let's see. I don't.
You've got me now waiting for your stream to catch up to what you're looking at.
I don't. I don't know. I don't know.
So look at his team record. It's SK Telecom. What years was he on there?
He was on SK Telecom from 2015 to 2018.
Okay.
So he would.
So I mean, he had to have been part of one of those wins.
Yeah, you're right. So he might be a multi.
Stepped up by Bengi in Bengi's last year.
Gotcha.
If I'm not mistaken. There you
All
go.
right,
There's
so
his
you
full.
got a world champion in the LJL.
Perfect.
And I mean, who do you think wins between V3 and Sengoku? So Sengoku. Then.
Between V3 and Sengoku, I believe the record is actually, over the last regular season as well as spring, if I'm not mistaken, is fairly heavily favored towards V3. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in just their overall record, they also beat... well, no, because V3 was lower bracket last time. DFM was for Sengoku in spring, if I recall. I believe the overall record favors V3. They are very close. In skill level, they play very similarly, and it is actually around their mid jungle synergy, the Korean duo for Sengoku, T1 legendary players. But I give this to V3, and I think this one is actually deceptively one-sided, if I'm being honest.
Okay. So even though it's going to be an exciting series, especially for LJL, you do think
Just
V3...
double checked. They had a 1-1 record this split.
Yes.
V3 took the earlier meeting in week 2, and then Sengoku beat them in week 7.
Gotcha. In spring, actually, Sengoku went 2-0 against them.
Maybe I was incorrect. I think that was actually... Yes, they did. You're right.
Yeah, so Sengoku does have the upper hand, but I do agree with you in the sense that V3 as just a team in general, maybe not necessarily like head-to-head, but as a team in general should.
It's a matter of, with the roster changes that V3 made, they've looked more convincing against everyone, not just in the individual matchup. I feel like this team plays the way that a Chinese team plays. They are very push the mid. They are essentially the Japanese FPX from when they won the World Championship. Boogie and Ace very much operate like a Tien and Doinby do, in the regards that it is always Boogie going in and Ace is trying to save him.
Yep, and I just think it's... I agree with you. I think V3 will probably win this one against Sengoku. And then do you have Crest beating Detonation Focus Me? In the next one?
Yeah, I did call that a second ago. I do have it. I would say it goes 5 games, and that's out of respect to Saros and Kevin, who is not currently watching our stream. But he'll be pissed at the VOD if I tell him that Saros would ever get 3-1. So I'll give him the 3-2.
All right. I will personally just say, because I'm still Detonation Focus Me fanboy, I'm going to give him the 3-2 to beat Crest Gaming. But I don't know if I'll be able to do that after Crest Game. You know what I mean? I don't know if I will have the guts to say they can beat Sengoku.
I just really respect the hell out of Arya, the mid laner for Crest Gaming. I think he is actually probably the best individual player on any team in that region.
Okay, that's fair. So we will find... Hey, they better ban Ziggs, is all I'm saying.
All I'm saying is, I mean, that's a mid-gap arena, and we'll just see which way it goes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's move on to the LLA. We
had one really interesting series in their playoff gauntlet this round.
Yeah, it was a 3-2, Rainbow 7.
This is the one that Ryan actually watched live.
Yeah, Ryan saw the LA series.
And I had talked a little bit about this. One of the things I had pointed out while we were watching the series live is that I wasn't familiar with the jungler Azulis was playing, a gentleman named NN.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because he hadn't played a single game. I believe we were checking it in over a year in competitive. And their starting jungler, Cyphers, didn't play at all, and we later found out he was moved to substitute, and NN is actually just a strategic coach for the team, came in and actually managed to take Rainbow Seven, who were heavy favorites in this series, all the way to Game 5. So it was a really cool series to watch in the end.
Yeah, and I mean, it was really back and forth. It was like Rainbow Seven wins a game, Azul's wins a game, Rainbow Seven wins a game, Azul's win a game.
None of the games were particularly convincing either. I mean, to be fair, we missed probably the first two. We weren't paying as much attention because that was during the TSM Golden Guardians series, and we were watching that.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have it on my second monitor, and it seemed to be fairly back and forth throughout. So,
and it props to Azul's. No one thought they'd be here. They barely got in on that.
They snuck their way through the phase 2.
They barely got into phase 2, and then they barely got out of phase 2, but they did, and that's important. And they brought
something to build off of. I believe they have a few younger players, at least a few rookies, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with them next year if they stick together.
Yep, the highest known age on the team is 22, so pretty young.
Pretty young team.
All right. So then, that being said, this week we have Rainbow Seven moving on, Shaky, facing Isurus Gaming.
Which is, of course, a very well-known team with very well-known players in this region.
You got the boys.
This is very much a dangerous series for Rainbow Seven at this point.
Yeah, especially if they struggled against Azul's with the backup, or the not even backup, the coach the strategic coach as the jungler. Rainbow Seven really has to step up their gameplay if they're going to handle Isurus.
Jose Diodo, their jungler for Rainbow Seven, is the one they want to rely on to be able to get things done early. That was how they managed to win their games against Azul's. And so we'll see if they're able to have learned anything from their extenuous series.
Yep. Yeah, so do you think they can pull it off?
No, honestly. If I'm being totally honest, this is got something like a 3-1 written all over it. I would say 3-0 just to be definitive in my answer. I don't think Rainbow Seven wins, and they were not convincing.
I was scared to say how it is still exciting because it is LA the semifinals, but I do think it's a 3-0, and especially if it's a 3-0 with Isurus, the series you really need to watch out for is those finals.
I will also admit that that's kind of why my bias is leaking into this second round matchup, is because I don't actually want Isurus to have too much momentum going in, because I really want to see the All Knights play at the world stage in an international competition. I love that team. And I know how much a 3-0 would probably give veterans like Adi and Saya the momentum to just knock them out again.
I completely agree with you. We just talked previously about the Chiefs and OPL. The All Knights are the same thing. This team is so much fun to watch all the time. And then they always are the first seed in the regular season. They get into the finals like this, and then they always lose to Isurus. And then the only team the casual fan will see is Isurus, and they're like, "Oh, Isurus is the only."
It's
good
like,
team
Adi and Saya, of course they own that region. They're always the best.
But it's like they're not owning the region. The All Knights are right there or better every time. They just choke at the end. So hopefully.
Someday we will see them, and I hope it's this time.
I fully agree with you. But that is for next week to decide. Who knows? Maybe Rainbow Seven will pull the big upset off on Isurus, and that will maybe give the All Knights.
That would maybe give All Knights the advantage they need.
They can finally get rid of their demons and finally get the Worlds for the first time. Alrighty. OPL.
Moving on? Yep.
Moving on to the OPL. We had Order take down Pentanet.gg in a 3-1, and we had the Chiefs in the loser bracket take down the Direwolves in a 3-1 as well.
And it was all, kind of as I had highlighted, it was all based on that Chiefs top side. They played incredibly well. Chippies couldn't get a thing going in that series. Vital actually had a fairly off series. Katsuri, I had kind of highlighted the AD matchup based on their history during the regular season, and the fact that Vital had heavily outperformed. But Katsuri really held his own and impressed me in this one. They were able to do very well and keep themselves afloat while their top side got leads.
And again, that was a good one for Chiefs, because the Chiefs, like we said, just like All Knights, they're always a threat in the OPL. But this year it was actually kind of an off year, being the 4th seed coming in. They're usually number 1 at 2 or worst, but they're 4th seed starting out in the loser bracket. They don't have any time to make
Chiefs and
mistakes here.
Dire Wolves is actually historically a finals matchup, yet we're seeing
Yep.
them first round lower bracket, so
Yep, it's very interesting.
times are changing.
Order pretty much they pretty much dismantled Pensionet. That's kind of
Yeah, that one wasn't as close as the lower bracket matchup was, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And then moving on from that, we actually already had. And then we had Legacy face Order in the next round, and Legacy.
And once again, this one was not a particularly close series either.
Unfortunately, Order, I love them, but this is Legacy's region to lose at this point. I
At
really
this point.
feel like that was Order was the team that I was counting on the most to be able to compete with Legacy, and like you said, it wasn't very close. So at this point, Order.
To be
can
fair, I
come
still
back
wouldn't
in.
be surprised if Order obviously beat whoever eventually fights them and we get a rematch. So, I mean,
Yes.
it's certainly possible that they've
that's
learned
true.
from that first matchup, but
It's worrisome how easily though Legacy beat them. In a
they'll
sense
need to
that-
learn a bit more, yeah.
Yeah, that we gotta hopefully have a rematch for them, and hopefully, like you said, they learn more and make it a little closer. So,
Yeah, I can see it being a very competitive finals, but we'll have to see if that's the case.
with that being said, though, we have Friday's match between Pentanet.gg and the Chiefs. Who did you have?
See, this is another one where I actually, despite Penanet being the higher seed, I think I favor the Chiefs in this matchup. And I think that's because despite his popularity, Pabu has still not impressed me in his jungle position. And Chiefs play primarily through their jungle and topside. And it matches up very well that you have someone as experienced and as influential as Croc as your jungler for the Chiefs. And I think an experienced jungler like that will just be able to take advantage of Pabu, unfortunately, for the Pennant GG side.
I agree with you completely. I also picked the Chiefs here. I do think the Chiefs will actually build off momentum of beating Direwolves. I thought Direwolves was going to be a really tough challenge, but it actually turned out 3-1.
I will
was
just say,
expecting 3-2.
though, in case, for example, someone from the OPL is watching in this, they're a little bit confused by my assumptions there. Pennant GG did win 2 of the 3 matchups during the regular season.
Yes.
It was the first 2 matchups. I believe the first one was even in the first week. It was the first game that Chiefs played this year.
Gotcha.
Was against Pennant, and they lost that one. I think as the season has gone on, Pennant's odd jungle picks were a little bit less frequent and a little bit less successful, and they were found out a bit in that regard with Pabu's transition into the role. And I think Chiefs, having come through their lower bracket match victorious against Direwolves, who were considered favorites against them, they'll be feeling really good.
Yep. And I think the Chiefs, again, like you said, like you just mentioned, the Direwolves, I think the momentum is back on their side, in my opinion. I thought that was going to be a really tough matchup for them. I had it 3-2, but they were able to pull it off in 3-1. It was still close, but
Yeah.
I think that I just don't trust Pentanet, like you said. The off meta picks and stuff like that, it can get really shaky really quickly.
That's the
once
thing
it's
is,
solved.
with Pabu, he's been playing less and less off meta, but that just, in my opinion, exposes him a bit more for how he's prepared for the matchup. And I think the experience of a player like Croc and the influence that he can have in a game really favors him if Pabu is not going outside of the meta. If Pabu comes out with a crazy pick or something that can throw an experienced player like Croc off, then maybe that's how they get an advantage in that regard. But I mean, in a head-to-head standard jungle matchup, you have to take the guy who's been popping off all year.
Okay. So, that being said, I think it will be a 3-1 Chiefs, personally. I think maybe they get one, like you said, one off-meta pick that the Chiefs are just not prepared for whatsoever, and that, like, really sets Pabu apart. But outside of that, I think Chiefs are going to be rolling.
I'll go 3-2 Chiefs.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because I think I like Pennant's laners better, specifically top and bot. I think Bradith is really good, and I still think Katsuri has been a weakness for the Chiefs. So whereas jungle is heavily in Chiefs' favor, and I think that gives them an early game advantage, I think that Bradith is actually really talented. And BioPanther is really good as well. Of course, he'll be going up against TN, who normally plays a bit more tanky engage style picks, but Croc does like to play around topside. So we'll see if BioPanther is able to deal with the extra pressure up there.
Gotcha. Yeah, and if Katsuri has another good series like he did against the Direwolves, then who knows? Maybe
If Katsuri holds his own, I think it's absolutely Chiefs' favor, but that's why I'm going 3-2, is just because from what I've seen, I think Bradith is better in that regard, and I think BioPanther in an individual isolated 1v1 is better than Tian.
Okay. And then that being said, we will have that will be Saturday. Saturday would be the winner. We'll just say the Chiefs as the winner, or even Pentanet, both of them winner facing Order. Do either of them take the win against Order?
I would say no, but I would say that actually Pentanet probably has a better chance against Order than Chiefs do.
Okay.
Whereas I still think Chiefs are favored against Pentanet. I think it's kind of, in some regards, a rock, paper, scissors triangle of sorts in terms of these three teams. The way they stylistically match up, I think Swiper is someone, for example, whereas Pentanet could rely on BioPanther. Swiper is obviously a very talented top laner. He's been in the region for quite a long time at this point, and I think Only is someone who could also take advantage of either Pabu or match against Croc, as he's someone they like to play through. This is a matchup where I think Pentanet would probably do better against Order. I would still pick Order though.
Gotcha. That's fair enough. And I think I'm on the same boat as you, where I think that Order would just flat out beat both of these teams. It's legacies to lose, but the only team that I think can really truly challenge Order challenge Legacy is Order. And if not,
Probably a certainly fair thing to say.
maybe Chiefs, but at the same time, to me, if the Chiefs get that far, they're just setting themselves up for another finals disappointment, in my
I
opinion.
will say though that on the whole, Order is 5-1 against both Pentanet and Chiefs this year,
Mhm.
and so their only loss came against the Chiefs. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm a bit wrong in my analysis there. Maybe Chiefs, based on the history, have a bit more of an advantage. I still think Order wins either.
Yeah, I think it's a moot point either way. Like you said, I think we'll be seeing Order versus Legacy in the finals next time we talk.
That would be probably the expected result, yeah.
Mhm. If not, though, hey.
It'd be a bit boring to call it out, but they are. The record kind of shows that they are kind of in their own tier, a little bit above. They've got distance between the bottom three, where it's just not as definitive.
Yep. All right. Moving on to the PCS, where we had some upsets.
Wow, this was an interesting one.
So we actually had a few games. We had actually 6 games go on this week for the PCS. Unlike
Yeah,
other
as
regions.
it always goes with the PCS, they love to just shove matches down your throat really fast and then space out like the last 2 weeks.
So we got Maki Esports taking down Alpha. Alpha took a game though.
Yeah, and who would have thought that it would have been the least surprising result?
Yeah, and then you had PSG take down Nova. Unfortunately, Ryan.
That
got
one was
2-0'd.
entirely expected.
Yeah, that one's completely. And then Ryan got 2-0'd on Nova. Then we had Nova take down Hong Kong Attitude, which I think we expected as well. I think
Yeah.
we did expect Nova to take down Hong Kong Attitude. However, the Bajaya Dragons 2-0'd
Hi, boys.
Alpha.
You know, it's actually very cool to see a team like Bajaya actually manage to pull together. I just have no confidence they'll be able to beat HQ.
Oh, I agree. But they won one, and that's what's important. They could say that, see, it's not just LMS teams here, and it's not just LMS teams plus Nova. We are a team that we actually could win a game as well.
So,
and they did. And Alpha's a
in case
disappointment.
you're unfamiliar with the PCS and how they do playoffs, no, they do not seed their first and second seed into the losers bracket. It's just both first and second managed to lose their first series.
yeah. And speaking of that, let's move on.
Let's take a quick peek. Let's do with the less surprising first.
Yes, PSG versus HQ.
So I had actually said last week that I thought PSG would be favored in a head-to-head against HQ, and I think that was pretty clear in this series. Some of the games were a bit back and forth, a little close, not particularly the cleanest gameplay you'll see, but I think it was pretty clear that as a team, PSG just had HQ's number on the day.
Yeah, I also am a big fan of PSG. I thought they were.
I think the team plays really well.
Yeah, they're my favorite. They've always been my favorite. They were my favorite in spring, and they're my favorite in summer still. But the more surprising one is Maki Esports taking down J Team 3-1.
Esports.
Now, to be fair, Maki was the favorite in spring, and they got upset to PSG in the spring finals. However, J Team was performing very well lately, like you had mentioned on last podcast. So Maki, and they are granted only 2 game difference between them, so it wasn't like a massive difference. But I think everyone kind of expected J Team to pull this one off.
Yeah, form and overall play, J-Team had looked very good coming into this matchup. I think even I had called out, I didn't really think it mattered who, Machi or Alpha, won that series because I think I had said that individually I favored most of the lanes. Like Lil V, I was expecting to take advantage of Bruce, honestly. Machi really impressed me, and it'll be very interesting to see if they can pull out something similar in quality level when they come up against PSG, a team that I think probably plays even better maybe than J Team, because if Machi win, they get seeded into finals, and as the the PCS sends 2 teams to Worlds, one
Qualifier.
best of 5 PSG or Machi will be qualifying for Worlds.
Yep, that was, I was gonna say, the very big thing to see for this week. Like, sure, you have Nova versus J Team and AHQ versus Bajaya. Both of those should be.
I was gonna say, if I'm not
3-0s.
mistaken, it will be the first wild card team to qualify for Worlds
Yes,
at that point.
it will be, like, because both
Vietnam's
of those.
the other one that sends 2, but they only are just starting their playoffs.
Because if those are 2 3-0s, then that's what you're expecting as well. By the way, I'm assuming with J Team.
For the J Team and AHQ versus Nova and Brajaya,
Yeah.
I would say it would be stunning if either of those teams take a win off the top 2. Yeah,
I agree with that as well. So those
unfortunately for Ryan, but you know,
unfortunately, yes, but those are probably going to be 3-0. So this is a very big series that if you want to watch a PCS series, this is the one to watch, because like you said, winner goes to Worlds automatically, no matter what. They win, they qualify for Worlds. And
Machi or PSG
Yeah.
will qualify. Although to be fair, that matchup is still 12 days away, I think, according to this, because they don't play until the semifinal round.
Oh, that is true.
So they won't be playing this next week.
I did not actually realize that.
But if we're talking about incredible games that will be coming up even before then, when J-Team and AHQ theoretically inevitably win their series, we will then have the first and the second place teams playing each other just for a chance to go to semifinals, not even finals.
Yeah, so one of those teams will be officially
Eliminated straight up.
eliminated and will not be going to Worlds. And
Mhm.
so, hypothetically, we're just both going to completely assume J Team.
Let's go ahead and say JT and HQ. I think there's no reason at this point to assume that a different team would win.
Though if Bajaya wins, I'm going to be rooting for them.
Oh, I'd be so hype. I'd be jumping around. It'd be so cool.
But
We would spend an hour talking about that series just like NA.
yeah, yeah, seriously, that Golden Guardians TSM is like half the podcast. But I think J Team beats HQ personally. I think that it was surprising to me that Maki beat them, but I think that hopefully they're not rattled too much from it. And I do think that they'll
I'm super nervous about their mental. And
Yeah.
honestly, when I think of two teams that are as good as JT and HQ were expected to be losing a series, that can be damaging mentally more than anything else.
Mhm.
And if I know anything about these two teams, is AHQ is stacked with veterans.
That's a
They
good
have
point.
Civ, Uniboy, Ysera. All these guys have been in and around the best in this league for a while.
19-year-old veteran in Uniboy, by the way.
That's right. 19-year-old. I mean, he is.
Yeah, he's been around for like 2-3 years.
Yeah. Since he can be, he's the PCS faker. Just every region has a faker.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, these guys are really talented, and despite the perceived ability of the teams when they're playing at their best, I think J Team would potentially break sooner than an AHQ would.
Okay. So do you think J Team is going to break and be eliminated then?
It depends on how convincing they manage to beat Nova,
Okay.
because they need to recover. And if Nova was to take a game, they might still lose confidence. If their games aren't even maybe as clean as they want them to, they could still be lacking confidence. I think, like we said, both of these should be expected 3-0s, and coming into that, we'll have to see how convincing it is before I would make a prediction there. And I'll save that for the next podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's something to keep an eye for when you're watching the series this week in the PCS.
Gotcha. I totally thought my bad. I thought the other one was this week as well. But you'll have to wait next week for that one. All right. Let's move on to the TCL.
If you broke it out, sorry.
Yeah, Ryan's trying to build a team here. Ryan is jungler, PP God is support, Broken Alfari, and Patrick. Hell, that's not a bad team, honestly.
Basically just all the people who deserved Worlds but don't get it.
Yeah. Well, we don't know about Ryan yet. Sorry, Ryan. But All right, let's talk about TCL.
I mean, did you see his Lilia?
All right, move on to TCL.
DCL it is.
TCL. We got 5 Ronin versus Dark Passage. 5 Ronin. Congratulations, guys. I don't know how they are doing this, but they're still here. They're in the semifinals. It's something I never thought I would say.
It might be mean to say, but I don't think I remember anything about that series. I watched the drafts back. I was trying to remember how the games go, but they are so nondescript in my mind. It was just a straightforward. One team took the advantage early, closed it out. Next game, this time Dark Passage wins, then back. It was just.
Hey,
I don't know. For someone who loves the wild cards,
it wasn't.
I really thought I would care more about the series, but it seemed very straightforward, honestly.
Gotcha. That's fair. That's fair. But I gotta give it to them. They were terrible in spring, and to make semifinals and only be 2, I know it's. Let's face it. It's the slope is still extremely high.
Belter's your mid, Ryan. Nice.
But the only 2, they're only 2 best of 5s away from Worlds. Which is something I thought
let me
I'd never
say
see
this.
from 5 Ronin.
For 5 Ronin, I will give them credit. They won as many games the other day as they did in the entirety of spring. So.
Yes, exactly. So, Alfari, me, Powelter, Patrick, PP God, peace synergy. That's great.
Yeah, Palpari, Payan. And then you got it.
But the other series was Supermassive versus BJK.
Yeah, our Turkish-Korean union beating Besiktas.
Yep, and I think that Supermassive.
That one was straightforward.
Yeah, Supermassive still looking like they are ramping up, and that is the series that I want to see.
I'll be honest, Besiktas taking a game in that series was doing them justice. I didn't think they had it in them.
Yes, I agree. This is it says to be decided. I'm assuming these games are this week.
So this is, again, I say every week, Turkey is the worst at scheduling. And I reference it all the time, but literally after the first week, they didn't have any of the rest of their schedules planned out. So the reseeding will happen, and obviously you have the Wildcats versus 5 Ronin, you've got Galacticus versus Supermassive, that is locked, and I would assume it's just going to be this weekend, 1 week from when the quarterfinals were.
That's what we're going to assume here. If
we're
not,
going to assume that.
We're going to just probably skip it next week. We'll just be like, these were our predictions last week. This is what we explained.
This, however, is probably on par with LCL in my expectations for the first and second seed from this region right now.
Really?
Both Istanbul and Galacticos look so good. Honestly.
They do.
I think Galacticos maybe go 3-1 perhaps, just because maybe Papara Supermassive has a really good game. Maybe Kakao does really well. They've got a lot of good overall players that you can think of and point to, like Zeitnot, for example, of course. But I favor Galacticos over Supermassive, and Istanbul will unfortunately send the Ronin back to their spring form.
Istanbul will 3-0. I'm fully on board with that.
Yeah.
However, I think Supermassive versus Galacticos is going to come down to, can Luger step up in a playoff scenario?
I'm so excited to see it. I love this kid so much. Watching him play back once we realized how well he was doing, he's very quickly become one of my favorite wildcard players to watch.
Yes.
He's my Yu-Gi-Oh of Japan.
I think it will be. I think this is going to be a 3-2. I also have Galacticos winning, but I think it's going to be a very close series.
Let me ask you: is that just based on the name as well?
Yes, it is. But it's also not
experience.
Well, it's names, experience, and we got to remember Supermassive was ramping up towards the end of the year on a 4-game win streak.
I mean, Galacticos was on a 5-game win streak.
True. But they're also very young, like you said. So it's not.
They are a young team. They're an exciting team, though, that is a series to watch. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I think Supermassive, with their experience, they're always a threat. Like right up there, they were up there with Royal Youth, who's now in the trash. But
I would even say that this series between Galacticos and Supermassive is actually one of the very few series where you could say it's just as exciting to see a stomp as it would be to see a full 5-game set, similar to that of, and this might not be fair to compare it to, but it's kind of like the Golden Guardians TSM, where it's very exciting to watch a team actually do well against the expectations. Whereas in this case, you want to see a team of really talented young players be able to beat some of these very big names. And if they do, and they do it convincingly, that'll get you really excited if you're a Turkey fan.
That's a good point. That's actually a fantastic comparison. And I agree. If Galacticos comes out and just stomps Supermassive, I will be so hyped for the Galacticos 5 Ronin finals now.
When Husky Rider takes it all and goes to Worlds.
Galacticos versus Istanbul Wildcats finals will be
I mean, if we get to say the name Husky Rider at Worlds, I won't complain.
That's true, but I will complain off the level of talent that 5 Ronin will probably be bringing to Worlds level.
True.
But yeah, all right. So I think I do think Galacticos wins. I think it will be close though.
Yeah, I can understand why you would say that. I still think 3-1, but I
Hell yeah,
do understand.
I appreciate it. All right, let's move on to the final wild card, VCS.
Sure.
We didn't have a playoff series this week, no playoffs, but we
finished up their regular season.
They
However,
finished the regular season. Do they have playoffs this weekend?
I believe it's the 19th, 3 days from
so they
filming
do,
of this.
Yep. So we have 4 playoff series. So let's move on. The regular season though ended, and it ended kind of how I think we expected it. I think everyone's in position that we thought they would be in. Gigabyte Marines in first place on a 9-game win streak, looking real good going to the finals. Team Flash came in, they beat Secret and OPG. Team Secret did drop the ball. I mean, it was a tough task, to be fair, to have Gigabyte Marines and Flash, but we did highlight that last week.
So one thing I will say before we get too far into this, match day 2 and 3 of this week 9 were not actually broadcast live.
Yeah.
There was, I think they have like a note on the actual page, but there was like a death with like a government official in Vietnam, and they basically canceled all the broadcasts, and then just later, 2 days later, updated the results.
Yep, it says no. The week 9, day 2 and 3 matches were not broadcast live. This was due to a
General
period of
Secretary,
national. The General Secretary, and I won't pronounce their name to insult them on their.
Yeah, rest in peace, my friend.
I won't even attempt to say it.
But so no, I haven't seen the day 2 or day 3 matchups, which is honestly really disappointing, because if you look at those matchups, you've got Gigabyte versus Team Secret, Gigabyte versus Cerberus, Team Secret versus Team Flash. Those are big playoff matches between the top 4 teams.
That's actually what we had brought up last week. Is these
we were talking about those exciting games.
2 days that you really need to focus on, and then not as exciting, but we did see Percent really choke, getting 2-0'd by Overpowered. Luckily for them, the Buffalo also lost to Evos 2-0, because if the Buffalo would have won that, Buffalo would have actually taken the spot over, and Percent would have been into the instead of being in the playoffs, they would have been relegated. Much bigger difference.
Big Koro was holding on to his big nuts as he was waiting for that result to come in, I'm sure.
Yeah. 10 and 22 is not a great record for a playoff team, but that's...
Let's just say Big Koro will not be going to Worlds, well, unfortunately.
Hey, possible. It's still possible.
Although it is nice enough that I guess the final day was as intriguing as it really could have been, because with all the big matchups unfortunately not being broadcast, I was really expecting to just be kind of let down by this final week and not really know what to expect going in. But I mean, at least we got to see how the playoffs and essentially relegation spots ended up sorting themselves out.
Yeah, and then honestly, so for playoff reasoning, wait, why does it say to be decided for here?
Because Gigabyte Marines gets pick, it's a selection for the first round, and because they have yet to pick, it's not updated. I believe they decide by tomorrow. Because today's games, they get like 24 hours to decide, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
So probably within like 6 hours of us filming that will be filled in.
Cool. Do you have Gigabyte Marines losing to either Cerberus or Team Secret, though?
No, and I do expect them to actually pick Team Secret, because they just played them this week. They played actually both Team Secret and Team Cerberus, if I'm not mistaken. We just said
took a game off of them.
Yeah, and both of them, I mean, were fairly convincing. So I suppose it's preference who they want to go ahead and take, but Cerberus did take one game, so I would just assume they take Team Secret.
All right, that's fair enough. And I think that Flash and Gigabyte will probably move on from the first round.
That would be a fair assumption based off the form we've seen going into it.
Which would be good, because that would mean either Flash or Gigabyte Marines will seal a world spot, because this is also a region.
One of them would guarantee with that second round matchup if that happens. Yes.
Very nice, because I want to see both of them at Worlds right now for out of Vietnam. It's with the wildcard teams. As much as I love upsets and stuff, especially like the Brazilian Dragons and stuff like that.
Sure.
For a wildcard team, you don't want to be Brazil in that sense. Where the
No, you don't want to send the team that doesn't really
that
have
pulled
the
the miracle run, but
yeah.
then they cool down, and then like they were hot.
They spend a month like in Korean solo queue or wherever they go to
Getting
boot camp, and they get like beaten down by all these teams that they managed to scrim against, and they're like, "Oh God, we're terrible," and then they're all disappointed, and then they die.
Yeah. So I always, even though I love upsets and stuff, I always want wildcard teams to send their very best, so the very best can improve and maybe hang a little bit with the top other regions.
It just gives more excitement for people from those regions, as well as for us to go ahead and watch and actually see what other regions have to offer.
Yeah.
Especially as, I mean, you and I are obviously speaking from the perspective of fans of wildcards that watch from NA. We're looking at regions that potentially have players that could improve our lower overall ability. I mean, we've certainly seen players like Closer and Broken Blade and Oceanic players, not like Ryoma, come over and improve our rosters. So who knows? We could be scouting in some ways.
Yes, very true. And in that sense, since this is all to be
And you want to see
decided-
someone pop off on the big stage who's got the metal to make that jump to a bigger region, you know?
That is true. That is true. Since we're dealing with all hypotheticals today with the
No, we're not talking about your percent.
I just
It's not a hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's a foregone conclusion, my friend.
does percent
No.
do they beat Team Secret?
No. No. I don't.
Oh man, Big Carl won't be making worlds. Makes me sad.
Think about it in a positive light. We'll get either Levi or, Team Flash, who deserved to it after winning MSI. They should have gone to MSI.
After winning MSI, wait a minute.
Winning qualification to
Yeah,
MSI
yeah.
is what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
They were the team to win in spring, and
Didn't get
you got that.
right.
And then seeing Levi with Gigabyte Marines back on the world stage is always going to be a really
Always
exciting idea to have.
Yeah. Do you have Cerberus or Evos hypothetically as well?
Hypothetically, in that loser bracket, you mean?
Yep. Yeah. Gotta have all hypotheticals today.
Yeah, no, I would say that one's closer just based on overall record. Form actually is a little bit in favor of Evos. They've been picking up some wins in the last few games, despite the fact that it's come at the expense of some of their lower opposition, if I'm recalling. But I would say that one would be the closest and maybe most exciting in that regards to watch. I would still favor any of the top 4 teams above the bottom 4. There's a pretty clear split in my head.
Okay, that's fair enough. And
But form could change that on an individual game, I would say.
Okay. And with that, though, that will be the end of the wildcard region part.
I think we've covered everything, yep.
Yeah, and then tune in next week, and it'll be all we'll be talking about is the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll be
again.
coming up on finals for a number of regions as of next week, so it'll be very exciting next week.
Alrighty, thank you so much for coming by, and I can't wait to see you next week when we talk
Thanks for
about finals.
having me
This is
again. I'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty, Ryan, are you here?
I never left.
There we go. That's what I like to hear. Let's go on to our top 10 to wrap up this podcast. 3 hours, 35 minutes. Told you it'd be under 4. Maybe. All right. Top 10. A little bit more of a shakeup than I thought there would be for the top 10. I really did not think, after no teams would be playing, except for playoffs, obviously, and only one region is still playing regular season, that we'd have so many top 10 shakeups. But there was a lot, in mine at least. I'm assuming the same for you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Let's start out with number 10. Do you want to go first, or do I want to go first?
I mean, I'll go ahead and do my number 10.
All right.
Sure.
Who's your number 10 team?
My number 10 did not change between weeks. I still have Schalke No Fear.
Nice. I like to see it. They get a yellow. They're in for 2 weeks. They didn't do anything, but they got to stay. That's awesome. My number 10
Yep.
team did change.
Guess what?
I do not have Schalke. I do not have Schalke in my top 10. I do have a team that I don't know why I'm putting them in the top 10. They probably don't belong, but they've been hot enough recently that they get a shot because of certain other teams that have been struggling. There was a lot of teams that struggled. So they have risen up here, and that is T1. I've moved T1 back into my top 10.
That's fair. I was actually debating whether or not to put T1 in my top 10.
Now,
But I mean, the reason I actually kept them out was strictly based on on the competition they
yep,
beat.
and that is why
So
I don't.
yeah.
This is not a convincing 10th place. This is almost a looking towards the future. If they can be competitive, they don't even have to beat Damwon. They just have to play competitive against Damwon, and then they have to beat DRX for me. If they beat DRX, which I have predicted, and they keep it close with Damwon, they definitely belong in the top 10 in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's the reason why I didn't put them in my top 10 is because I need to see that first.
That's fair. That is fair. All right. Who's your number 9 team? No, I'll do number 9 next. Number 9 are the bastards called IG. You fuckers let us down. I've dropped you so far. I'm so upset with you. You look terrible, for one. Against they looked awful against LGD, and you got negative points from my personal opinion because you made it so V5 didn't make Worlds. It didn't have a chance to make Worlds. You didn't even give them a shot. That's all I wanted V5 to have. You got 3-0'd.
Now you know how I felt about Billy Gaming last summer.
I love Billy, but not as much as you. That's fair.
You're so quick to jump on board, getting your boys Invictus Gaming to Worlds, man. You didn't even realize how much that was killing me on the inside. Billy didn't even get a chance to fight for their spot.
I was so depressed when I woke up today and saw that IG got 3-0'd, and I was just like,
it wasn't even like it was like a close match.
It wasn't even a
they
close
just got
3-0.
They got giga crushed.
It was giga crush. Like, yeah, you are absolutely right. Depressing.
Yeah, I will say IG still on my list. I did drop them a significant amount, not as much as you, but they are currently number 7 on the list.
All right. That's fair.
I wanted to drop them lower, but as of right now, I couldn't drop them lower than my 8 or 9 teams.
All right.
That's because my number 9 team is G2.
Woo! G2 has moved all the way up to number 9 for you.
Yeah.
Good
I
off
decided to
week.
go ahead and give him the spot. Yeah. But that's the reason why I couldn't keep him below IGs, because G2 has never beaten a Chinese team.
That's fair. G2 for me is actually my number 8 team. They have moved up. They were number 10 for me before, but with DRX just faltering like crazy against Prince and should have lost against the Prince, and IG just being an embarrassment, and Fun Plus Phoenix being terrible against V5. G2 moves up by themselves. All right, who's your number 8?
My number 8 is Fun Plus Phoenix.
FPX. Ooh, they've dropped. Oh, they went up.
They actually somehow went up.
They somehow
on
went
the
up.
list.
Interesting. They fell out of my top 10, so they're not in my top 10.
Yeah, I almost was planning on kicking them out, but I think right now, since both them and IG are still technically in Worlds contention, and so they have a chance to bounce back, they're here. And again, it's IG, it's FPX. Both these teams, G2 can't get past.
That's fair. That is fair. All right, my number 7 team then to continue the list is Gen G. Still, they've slightly gone up because the other teams have gone down, but I still think Gen G is still a pretty good team. We'll have to see in a best of 5 still if they can pull that off, but I think they're relatively good.
If history is to say anything, it's not the best for Gen G.
Yeah, hopefully they can change that around.
Yep. And I actually, it's funny enough, I actually have Gen G just one spot above. I have them at number 6.
Nice. All right, so we have none of the same exact things right now, so it's making it so like it's very easy for which one of us to go next. So my number 6 team is actually V5. They have stayed the same. I don't care that they got crushed to Sunning. It hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts.
I know, dude. It sucks. You know what sucks even more though? They're not in my list. They're out. They're out of Worlds.
Fair.
They blew it versus Suning. They had their chance. Invictus just basically they dropped themselves into their own coffin and Invictus just nailed it shut.
That is 100% fair. I feel like mine probably next week after it doesn't hurt as bad. It still hurt. It hasn't even been 24 hours.
Oh yeah,
It hurts.
it's the wound is fresh, and
Yeah.
Invictus dropped salt into it.
Yeah, so that's
But-
why Invictus dropped really hard for me.
but-
V5 didn't drop. I'll probably drop V5 next week just because. But right now
Yeah,
they
I
need
mean-
to stay there because it hurts me.
I mean, at the end of the day, our last performance, I mean, we saw a good series from them against FPX,
yes.
which is fair, and then they just got absolutely crushed by Sony, and now they're not even in World's contention anymore. So unfortunately, they are the first LPL team that's going to be taking a pure bow out of my top 10 because
Right.
there's no way for them to prove themselves anymore. That Suning series is the last we'll see of Victory 5, and that's all that would have to judge them
At
on.
least a bad
Like
hit
IG and
from them.
FPX at least are still in contention and can still pull it back
Yeah.
and can earn their way back in.
Hmm.
V5, that's what they had. Out not with a bang, but with a whimper.
All right. Who's your number 5 team then? Since I've been putting mine in.
My number 5 is Suning.
Suning. Okay. Suning is also my number 5 team. Look at that.
Yep.
I think that they're still
They
looking pretty
They still
solid.
say the same for my last week.
Yep, they're looking pretty solid. I think they're still
Mm-hmm.
good team all around. They handled V5 very well again, and now they have a true test against Top, and we'll see if they're
Yep.
able to handle that one.
They are basically where I thought they were last week.
Yep.
Like I said, I had them above V5 and said V5 has to prove themselves against Suning. They didn't. They're not in World's contention anymore. So Suning just kind of is where they are now. They have a chance to move up too if they show that V5 series was not as much V5 just playing horrendously and actually was an example of just how good they are as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a chance to prove it.
All right. Who's your number 4 team? Is it LGD?
It is LGD.
Me too. Coming out from the 11th, 12th
nothing.
spot. They were so
It's
close, and then
Yeah, it's funny because V5 is out and LGD just jumped right back in.
yeah, LGD is coming in hot all the way up to number 4. Fantastic performance against IG. As bad as IG looked, LGD really did capitalize on every single bit of it and just completely blew them out of the water. And that's also coming off a good series against Team WE as well, and just making Team WE's jungle and bot side, which are their best performing lanes, just absolutely destroying them. And so I'm excited. This team, if they're hot, again, they can be a world champion level team. And
Yep.
if Peanuts playing the way they are, this team is a big threat.
And it's one of those things where it's funny because it's been 5 weeks since I've had LGD at my top 10.
They were in mine 2 weeks ago, but they were only 10th. They haven't been, they haven't been
Yeah,
great.
last time they were, it was 5 weeks ago, and they were 9th place. They were
Wow.
just above, ironically, just above IG.
That's great. Oh man, yeah. On July 12th, it would have been. But yeah, our faith is back. Our faith is restored. Is
Yeah,
your top?
they proved it. They
Mhm.
they played well, and then they went even above and beyond by beating IG the way.
Not to kill the spice of the top 10, but since 2 of these teams in your top 3, I'm assuming, haven't played. Is it the same as last week?
Well, it's not going to be the same as
Oh,
last.
you're right.
It's not going to be the same as last week
I
because
forgot about
IG is not there.
IG. Sorry. So we'll go third at least. We'll go third. Is your third top
Yeah.
esports?
It's top esports.
Yep, me too. I totally forgot IG. They're so dead to me. They're out of my mind completely. I'm so upset with them still. It's only been 24 hours, guys. Let me have this.
The sooner I can forget, the better.
Yeah. Oh man. And then so top moves up from IG, still looking really good. Definitely number 2 team at the moment in China. They have potential easily to be the number 1 team, and so does LGD. And we'll see if they can take it though from JDG, because to be fair, JDG is defending champions. So technically they should be number 1, but I really would rather have top or LGD. I don't care what you guys say.
Yeah, it's literally like perceived ceiling
Yeah.
for what we've seen from the eye test. It's like these teams are way more exciting than JDG.
Yeah, absolutely. That being said, I do still have JDG as the number 2 team. in the league, and Damwon, of course, as number one.
And as do I, in that order. Damwon number 1, JDG number 2. Again, and here's one thing though I will say, and it's something that I even mentioned last week when I moved Damwon to 1 as well, and especially with one team being pretty conspicuous in their absence for both of our lists is Dragon X.
Yep.
Neither of which are in our top 10 anymore.
It was unexcusable.
Which I believe. Which
Inexcusable.
I believe is the first time in the all year that they have not been in our top
Yeah,
in our
and
global
they're
top
still they're still 15-2. So this is like troll
Yeah.
if you just look at record wise. Absolutely.
10
they should-
standings. Yeah,
They're probably number 11 for me. They did barely miss the cut, but they were number 9 last week. So for you, they dropped pretty far. They only dropped 2 spots for me, so it's not a significant drop, but they did need to dropping a game and almost dropping a series to a team that I consider on the equal level of CLG. And if you're an NA fan, you watch CLG, that's how bad Prince is. And if you're a team like Dragon X that have World's Inspirations and you have Chovy and Deft on the team, you should never be losing a team that's like CLG. That's literally it's the same thing. CLG could have took Dragon X to 3 games in that performance that they put out.
which is insane. Like the fact that they even dropped a game
Yeah.
to Prince is bad enough. The fact that they almost dropped the entire series
Yep.
is just horrendous.
Yep. And if they come out and beat T1, I'll apologize and I'll put them right back in here. Easy enough.
Yep.
Easy as that.
Not necessarily, because here's the thing, and this is one of the things where it's like the reason I had them as high as I've bet, even back then, I was a firm believer that this team is being super overrated. It's why they're so far away from Damwon, even in like the previous list.
Yes. They
This
were 8
team
full spots.
This team has been on the line. They've been riding for weeks now. They lost to KT Rolster, and that's how they lost their undefeated record. Was to KT Rolster of all teams. Okay, whatever. Then they played Damwon, and in the first round, should have lost that series 2-0. It literally came down to Damwon just throwing on a random base race, on a random attempted backdoor, and they blew a massive lead, and got them into game 2 where they shouldn't even won game 1.
Yep.
Then they played KT Rolster and nearly lost to them again in the second round robin.
Mm-hmm.
They played Gen G, and realistically could have lost that series as well. This came down to Gen G making one big mistake that gave Chovy a highlight play and got them back into the game.
So now we're talking like 4 or 5 series.
Yeah, and then then they go, and then it's just getting worse and worse because like, okay, well, Gen G's a good team and they still won in the end. Fine. KT is KT. Okay, the upset happens. Oh, it almost happened again. Maybe it's just a KT thing. Whatever. This was the straw that broke the camel's back. This is inexcusable for a top team in Korea, even if you're in Korea. And this is legitimately Dragon X playing this poorly and nearly losing to Prince. I almost moved Damwon down a spot just because of that.
Wow.
Like they're by association hurting the other Korean teams in my eyes.
Okay.
Because this is supposed to be your number 1 team in the region,
And they're really
this
choking that
bad.
hard. Yeah.
and they're playing this badly against terrible teams, against nobody teams,
Mm-hmm.
and they're relying on the nobody teams to make stupid repeated mistakes and throwing the game back to them to win a game.
It was
It's
inexcusable.
Yeah, it's inexcusable,
I said
and it's literally
unexcusable.
it's just is that sort of stuff is literally it's what's casting even more of a doubt on Damwon, and I feel like that's even unfair as a C9 fan, especially hearing all the criticisms for like C9 in North America in spring. It's literally the same thing that's happening in Korea right now for Damwon, where Damwon just looks miles better than everyone else, but because the other top teams around them are also playing this poorly against some of the worst competition that the region has ever had, it's now just making it seem like, okay, well, is it just Damwon is just smurfing on a bunch of children and Korea is just really bad right now? Or is Damwon just actually world class? and it's hard to tell. That's what I'm saying. And this is sad because Dragon X was a team I had a lot of hope for coming out of spring,
Yeah, we had them as number.
and they're just playing. There's massive disappointment.
By week 2, you had them at number 2. I had them at number 2 by week 4, and they were number 2 all the way until July 5th, where they dropped from number 5 to you, number 3 to me, in July 12th. So we had them we were really high on this team early on mid-season here, but unfortunately,
we were so quick to believe
Mhm.
because we saw what they could have been in spring, and now it's like they reached that peak. They peaked in week 1,
Yeah.
and they just been downhill ever since.
winning series still, but they're just not looking clean on it.
They're not. They're arguably one of the least convincing number 1 seeds in any region,
Okay, yeah.
especially in the major regions.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well,
Which is weird to say because
Actually-
it's funny because it's actually kind of funny, but it's similar to all the number 1 seeds.
I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, the number 1 seeds are DRX,
It's weird.
Team Liquid, Rogue, and Top right now, who's also
Yeah,
struggling.
and it's like top and JDG are like the number 1, or even though I know top is technically the number 1 seed, like they ended up
Yeah.
tied.
Yeah.
So even then, it's top and JDG,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't looking like world beaters in LPL
Nope.
by the end of the regular season.
That's crazy. Interesting to think about, though.
And there are teams now, ironically, it's teams like Damwon and teams like LGD and teams like G2 or Schalke that are much more exciting and fun and interesting to watch. Even just the idea of like a Cloud9 team that's slumping but has the potential to bounce back, or a Golden Guardians team that's possibly making a huge underdog run through the winners bracket. They're just much more enthralling to watch, and they're actually playing some good League of Legends.
Mm-hmm. All right. Oh, I think with that, though, it's time to wrap up tonight's podcast. It will be a fun week. I can't wait to talk about next week's games. But that being said, thank you guys for coming to watch, and I think we will see you guys next week to discuss a lot of the best of 5. All playoffs now, except for Korea. Korea's on one more week of the regular season. But outside of that, it's all playoffs in every region. So it should be fun to watch. And we'll see you next week to discuss them all. Sorry for that terrible ending. All right. Good night, guys. We'll see you next week.
Good night, guys.